I'm sure it started as a joke.
And then your boss called and tells you, why aren't you at work?
Maybe the mayor of Odessa actually announced it as a joke. And people just took it seriously. And now he couldn't pull back. It was meant to be the April Fool's joke. I'm declaring a holiday this and every other first of day of April every year.
And then it turned out to be something else.
Well,
you know, that's how... I was just looking at the history, right?
Uh-huh.
So, it took place in 1582 when the Julian calendar, when France as a country shifted from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar. The switch took place because France had decided to commence their new year with the spring equinox, which takes place around the 1st of April. So this is like where you're switching over from winter to spring, right? Uh-huh. After the switch, citizens failed to recognize the change and kept celebrating April 1st as the new year. Hence, ever since then, all the citizens of France were termed April Fools. Also, some were even tagged as Poisson d'April, which is the April fish, which means a person who is as gullible as a fish.
And these are fish scientists who've come up with this idea that fish are gullible. If you're a fish and you know that human beings eat you, wouldn't you consider human beings gullible?
Well, you're the one who's being eaten. So
what?
Yeah, there's nothing you're considering.
Even if they eat you, there's still many of you.
So, if you are pranked today, we call you Poisson d'Avril.
All right. Poisson d'Avril.
April fish.
You know, it sounds, when you say it in that language, it doesn't really sound bad.
No, it doesn't.
It sounds like some food that has been fried.
It's like a shoe.
Samaki ya kupaka.
There you go. Samaki wa kupaka. Today is also that day again. What did you say that day?
Thursday.
Monday, Thursday.
Oh, today is Monday. It's Monday. Maundy.
Yes. Maundi.
Why?
Yes. That's the day.
Maundy.
That's the day Judas did his thing.
That's the day Judas
did his thing.
Let the cat out of the bag, or in this case, cat in the bag.
The real thing, because
he did the real thing. He'd been prone to doing those things.
He had been called aside and been made an entrepreneur.
Okay. He wasn't really a sanitized chap, was he?
Who, him?
Judas.
But he was a treasurer. He was in charge of money. And even then, the issues used to arise about his bookkeeping.
He had sticky fingers.
Let's put it this way. He knew how to amalgamate funds. Yes.
But his boss had confidence in him. He never fired him.
His boss knew what he was about and gave him many opportunities to turn around. Clearly, he didn't.
Turn around.
He did turn around.
He
betrayed him.
He did turn around.
Just be you.
He was a turncoat from the beginning.
He told Judas, just be you.
Just
right?
be yourself.
And Judas
just do you, man.
Was himself.
Just do you, man. So on this day, those very many years ago, in the morning, Judas's wife called him and told him, "Hey, Mzee, you know weekend is coming. I need some cash." And Judas looked at his wife and said, "Mpenzi wangu, babe, usijali. Kuna kadil kanaivana leo. Jioni hivi ama kesho, takusoti." The wife was used to these things.
Didn't know that.
She knew every time coming to Friday.
Whenever a man of God speaks to you about a historical occurrence, you want to pay attention.
I'm paying attention.
So, what about the wife's relatives? What did they say?
They were used to this. In fact, probably this was pressure from the wife's relatives.
We know where you get money every
weekend.
Unajua
so and so, anaenda sijui wapi, sio tusaidia. And then the wife comes to the husband with her own need. Not saying it's a relative so and so. It's her own need for domestic use or for chama or for salon or something that she needed money this weekend.
If indeed she required a lot more money, she comes with, you never do anything for me.
The look on your face, Siti, good grief. Is that how they do their face when they're coming to ask you for money?
Never do anything for me, surely.
You just do things for other people.
Hey, what?
Judas was like, baby, what is it? What is?
Surely, Toto.
What is, baby? Tonight, I'll sort you out. Where? Kill you, manna. Kill you, manna.
manna.
Kill you, manna. Welcome to the show, everybody. We're going to have some interesting conversations today. A number of things. We're going to look at climate. So first, it's raining now. It should have started raining in mid-March. Climate conversation. We'll be looking at anything funny to review this year as we celebrate this particular morning. We'll also be asking ourselves, so now, this story of BBI. Yesterday we were talking about it. The deputy party leader of ODM, the secretary general of ODM have said one thing. Kidogo later, the party leader of ODM comes up and says something completely different.
You would have thought yesterday was April 1st.
Yes. Or maybe that was the joke. So yes, let's have a conversation today with the secretary general of ODM and ask him, now that we see you sitting there next to Baba in this photo that you met in Karen yesterday, what kind of conversation did you have? And then also we will ask ourselves what's happening out there as the COVID-19 restriction measures take hold and take effect. We'll be speaking to some people who were doing a demonstration yesterday on the streets, and they were saying, Uhuru, unlock our country.
There are many calls for this now.
Unlock our country. We'll be speaking to one of the people who was out there saying unlock our country and ask them, okay.
Right, unlock how, really?
Nini, exactly.
You know, the extremities to that perspective, as in, you just let us die in peace. Or do whatever you need to do to ensure we are safe, but unlock the country.
Yeah, but leave us alone.
Yes.
Yeah, let us be. Anyway, COVID-19 is still here with us.
It is, and let's look at those crazy numbers that CTA talked about earlier. Let's look at Brazil before we come back home. Yesterday, Brazil reported 89,200 new cases and almost 4,000 deaths. Yesterday, you were gawking at the high number. Today, 3,950 deaths reported officially in Brazil. Really, really taking a hit now. And this now catapults Brazil's total number of COVID-19 cases to 12,753,258. What on earth is going on in Brazil? That's the question. Looks like the president now might be saying, talking to his people directly now. And a lot more than he was before, and basically saying now, okay, I'm trying to help. I'm trying to see what we can do to see how we can fight this. This numbers hit home for him yesterday. And then he spoke out and said, you know what, now we are ready. I don't know. Now we will see what we can do.
How many people died yesterday?
3,950.
3,000 in a day.
Yep, almost 4,000. 50 less than 4,000 people passed on yesterday from COVID-19. The mass
So we've
graves
been
in
doing
Brazil,
an average of 2,500 per day.
Yeah, that has been the average. in
Time
Brazil.
is 31 days. It's close to 70,000 people
Yes.
who've died in a month.
Yes.
Where?
You talk about a month, Brazil, you read and it's like you're reading something bizarre that falls in the category of science fiction.
Yeah.
60,000 people in a month dying, Chief.
That's a huge number. That's a huge
2,000
number.
every day.
It's a huge, huge number.
It really is.
Hey. Okay. And still no lockdown measures, nothing.
No, there is no nationwide lockdown. There is no announcement officially of a lockdown, of closure of, social establishments and things like this. No, it still continues. Children are in school.
Okay.
People are going to work.
I come back to that. So
Establishments are open.
Bolsonaro is doing things because he can see this is what the people want at the same time. Because he'd have faced that pressure internally if people actually were taking their kids off school, if people were...
He's facing it, Eric. It was just a question of time. Because when these sort of numbers are publicized, it means the number of people who are being affected by COVID is innumerable.
Yes.
And whatever else he thought he was doing, or whatever goal he was trying to achieve, he's certainly not going to achieve it. The popularity has plummeted. Not is plummeting.
Has plummeted.
Yes.
Experts are saying that a 14-day lockdown would make sense in Brazil today in terms of how they would then be able to break the chain. 14 days, lock it down, don't let anybody move. Try and see now how they can break break the chain. But, experts can just say they need government then to enact the same. They've been talking about it for some time. But if government doesn't now step in and say, all right, we've listened to the experts, this is what we're going to do, shut it down and give a nationwide announcement about the same, or you can just suggest, and that's all it will be.
I still want to come back to... Look, like you're saying, City, almost everybody has been affected by this.
Yes.
When 60,000 people die in a country in a month, and
You know
we're not
that
talking
isn't a
about
joke,
just 1 month, it is month on month,
Yes.
60,000 this month, 60,000 next month, 70,000 another month, 50,000. We're talking about over close to 200,000 people who have died.
This thing, it's serious.
No, actually, we're talking about how many? 300 and what thousand people?
No, they went over the 300,000 threshold. They
half
passed
a
that
million,
Half a
Claude,
million.
right?
Yeah, half a million.
Half a million people have died. The citizens, if it was anything else, you'd see demonstrations on the streets.
Yes. He was popular. Those demonstrations are going to come.
But you know what
So why is it taking so long? That's what I'm wondering. I mean, are you telling me that the people of Brazil are just sitting back and they're saying, you government, do something, but us guys are, we're still opening our shops. I'm still sending my kids to school. I'm still mingling in the market. I'm still doing this and the other. And yet I know 7 close family members who've died.
But what are we talking about? I mean, football's still going on. I mean, like here, for example, the experts, again, talking about the fact that football in Sao Paulo is a breeding ground for COVID-19. They are suggesting that the federal government shut down in order to stop the spread. But then the federal government has also said that, they can't really make that decision right now. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
So, I mean, it's
the
kind
people
of
are
like,
going to the stadium.
Yeah, people are going to the stadium. People are going to the eateries. People are, children are in school.
Experts are saying what they're saying, and they have reason to say what they're saying. It's from what they're reading. Okay, I'm stuck, and that's why I keep asking every day. What is it that the people of Brazil want? Because clearly, it appears like they don't want any lockdown. They don't want to be told not to go for a football match because they are going for a football match today.
Yes.
You actually went to bury a close relative, and then later that afternoon you're in a stadium.
Not seeing the danger.
By the way, the thing that you perhaps need to bear in mind, when you talk of Brazil, we touched on it yesterday, and you talk about poverty levels. Why do I bring in the subject of poverty? Poverty has a way in which it actually controls the mind. Let me explain to you. Your focus is on daily survival.
Yep.
People were dying before COVID, so that isn't strange. So long as somebody gives you this illusionary benefit of being able to do what you need on a daily basis, your mind suspends the dire prospects of death that you're seeing all around you. You feel, but at least he's allowing us to do what we want to do, and people are going to die anyway. Let's take an example of France. They have locked down now
Again.
4 weeks. Again, it's not the first, it's not the second, it's not the third time. Meaning the moment they see a spike, they lock down. So even if Brazil locks down for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks, my friend, the penetration of COVID within the community,
It's already high.
it's extremely high.
And unfortunately now, initially from the first strains that we saw in Brazil, they were affecting the elderly and those who were vulnerable because of pre-existing conditions. Now, unfortunately, we see this affecting younger people, 16 to 22, and dying very quickly from a rapid onset of symptoms.
Yeah.
It's not good. It's not good.
Okay. So bear that in mind when we speak to those people who are saying, Uhuru, unlock our country. Good morning, 17 minutes after 6.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
It's time to answer questions that are worthwhile. The Big Quiz Show is here. Register to play from the comfort of your home by SMSing the word JOIN to 23774. Then watch the live show on KTN every Sunday from 8 p.m. where you could have a chance to win a mealie. The fastest and most accurate answers are guaranteed to win. The Big Quiz Show, Sundays at 8 p.m. only on KTN.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Yep, rain showers in most parts of Nairobi this morning at 17 degrees. It's going to go to highs of 27 today. A chance of rain for most parts of today. Heavy thunderstorms being recorded in Nyeri. 15 degrees at the moment. It'll go to highs of 23 and down to lows of 15. It's partly cloudy in Nakuru at 15. Highs of 27. Highs of 25 in Eldoret. Clear skies at 13. It's clear in Kisumu at 20, going to highs of 29. 29 will also be the high in Kakamega. It's clear at 15. It's raining in Mombasa at 27. Highs of 31 and lows of 26. It's also raining in Malindi at 27. It'll go to highs of 32 today. Light rain in Kampala at 20. Highs of 26 and lows of 19. It's also raining in Dar es Salaam at 26. 30 the high and lows of 25. Clear skies in Johannesburg at 15. Highs of 24 and lows of 12. It's raining this morning in Lagos at 28, highs of 33 and lows of 26. 31 the high and mostly clear conditions in Kinshasa. Looking at 22 coming back down to that low. 18 degrees and sunny in Beijing as you get well into the hot months. 19 the high and lows of 11. It's clear in Paris at 9, highs of 25 and lows of 8. 13 degrees and clear in London. Go to highs of 15 today and lows of 5. It's raining Wednesday night in New York at 12. Coming into Thursday, we'll see highs of 16 and lows of 7.
Spice FM. Spice up your life.
It's 20 after 6. Good morning to you. We're already live streaming on Spice FM KE and people are saying hello.
Right. Robert Bogo says, good morning from Mombasa. Abu Mashar Issa says, good morning to Eric and Siti Wamashati. Tuning in from Malindi. Ondicho is tuning from Kantozi Mwingi. Good morning from Gitari in Nyamira. There you go. We're right, guys. And that's Bishogoro Omokaya. Washira Wilfred says, good morning. Hey, good guys. Ndu Eric and Siti in his shirt of many colors. Oh, that's the one. And he says, now, Kenyans never cease to amaze me and always have a thing to explain about everything. Now, folks have got many ideas about AstraZeneca and Sputnik association with our two political factions. Anyway, waiting for your word in Gishugu if you have any regarding the allegations. Okay. BJ Ariko says, good morning. Rogers Lie, good morning from County 001. Eric, yet to know the games otherwise. So he's waiting for that April Fool's, Layment Tanui Kapte says, good morning from Nandi County. Daniel Mwenje says he's tuned in from Outer Esirulo. Hey, okay. County 001 is listening, and that's from Safi the Best. Benson Momo, good morning. Everybody's online today, my goodness. Susan Wanja Mwaniki. This thing is very serious. May God protect us. Yeah. Lucy Wakambo says, good morning to you guys from Nakuru. Brian Kiswili is tuning from Mountain View. Douglas Muturi says, good morning. Poverty continues due to mindset. Okay. Gasheri says, good morning. Kenyans must learn from what is happening in Brazil and more so the youth. Let's do what we can to prevent the spread of this COVID-19. Let's go. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Good morning, and thank you very much for tuning in. City proverb.
Right. The fate that befalls the lowly will befall the leader.
The fate that befalls the lowly will befall the leader.
Yes.
In the end, you're all equal.
Actually, yes. Because leaders and followers have a similar beginning. They're all born. At the end of their lives, they all die. Yes. Now, in between, similar occurrences. Yes. The things that befalls one will befall the other. Yes.
Okay. So it sort of reminds me of the people talk about God gives you height. Width is your work.
Yeah, it's your effort.
It's your effort.
Yes. So when you look at the width, this person has worked at it.
Yeah, they work hard at it. Okay, let's take a look at the headlines. Now, before we go to the very obvious story that Baba wants to be president in 2022, 3 counties have run out of free COVID-19 vaccine, and this is on page 10 of The Nation. What does it say? It says at least 3 counties have run out of the AstraZeneca vaccine, with hospitals turning away thousands of eligible Kenyans, including the elderly. The acute shortage has been reported in Nyeri, Nairobi, Murang'a, and Uasin Gishu, with Nyeri virtually suspending the vaccination program until new doses are delivered, coming amid claims of hoarding and corruption, with rogue health workers charging desperate Kenyans seeking the jab in the capital, Nairobi. Some high-end private facilities had also announced. For example, the Aga Khan had sent out an announcement saying, all right, we've run out of the vaccines, so we are suspending. They've now released another announcement saying, okay, we've gotten a fresh batch and we have resumed the free vaccination exercise, and they're very strict on who's getting, according to the government instructions. Frontline workers and persons above 58 years of age. So this is happening in various parts. Some of the health facilities are running out of the doses that they had. It's indicative of the fact that Kenyans are going for vaccine. It's a good thing. The only thing is now the logistics of it. So are we actually able to address that? Can you predict, looking at the number of people who are turning up and knowing, all right, so our nearest storage facility in this region is at such and such a place. Can we start getting the more of these vaccines coming in?
Remember, we had this discussion and we were at odds. We wondered, really, will we meet the target? It appears we're going to surpass it.
Yes.
Because I think the lockdown, remember, it was Monday I was saying, I drove around and I was surprised. Health facilities. Cars were parked on the road, off the road.
Queues.
And queues of people.
Yes.
But at first I thought, you know how there's this image and you're wondering what is happening. The near the poison dentist. No, let me get this right. Pharmacy and Poisons Board, yes. But then there's the doctors and dentists board offices.
Yes.
Man, when you see cars parked on the other side, and it's immediately after DOD, you wonder what is going on. Then you see throngs of people, and I figured, vaccine. So I said, I went round, ran a road, spinal unit. Man, now the queues on the side of the road. There was this lone policeman who clearly did not know what to do. Traffic policeman now. Who do you start arresting or who do you start questioning? I think he stood there for some minute or so and then just took off.
Just leave them alone.
Yes. No, people are getting vaccinated.
Yes.
And you know what? I think also you realize that in the first couple of weeks, people didn't really go because they're waiting for the front line or whomever to get it done. Then the realization that that's not happening, let's go.
What starts going out that you're not a frontline worker, just go and get the vaccine and you'll get the vaccine.
People go.
Again, there was this question you asked the other day. Did I get notification from Bagathi? I got notification yesterday.
Hallelujah.
Yes.
What does it say?
At 3:36.
Just read
Actually, let me just read it for you.
We compare with the others.
So that you understand. Okay? Notification. Congratulations, Charles, that is me, on receiving your first dose of Covishield vaccine batch 4120Z030. Next dose is due on Wednesday, 26th of May 2021. And this is powered by MOH.
Right.
No sooner had I received this message, a second message came. And this is what it reads. Congratulations, Charles. Okay? On receiving your first dose of Covishield batch number. By the way,
is the batch the
4120Z0030. Same.
Okay.
Next dose, again. No mistake here. Same date, same time. Wednesday, the 5th of May 2021. And once again, this message is powered by MOH.
Okay.
In case I didn't get the first two, a third one arrived. And it reads, congratulations. Okay, the rest I think you already figured out.
Just in case. They say 3 is a charm. Just in case you didn't
So
get the first.
let me just mention, if somebody hasn't received their message, perhaps they sent me their message by mistake.
Yeah, you
They
can
send
forward.
your number.
If
I
your
can-
name is
I can-
Charles.
Charles, I can just forward you.
If your name is Charles,
I can-
Charles Muga
yes.
has your
I can forward you one of my messages because I only need one.
Hey, God have mercy.
3 messages.
3.
Back to back.
So it's, as I said, possible somebody has messaged.
Told you, you're
So if
Simweko
your name is Charles
credit.
and perhaps, or your name is Muga, and you have not received your SMS, just send me a number. I will forward one.
Forward
to
you the
Yes.
message.
You shouldn't feel left out.
You have it.
Hi, Charles, I don't think you're okay.
All right. So we're going to take another break now so we can take a look at traffic and what's happening on the roads. Okay? And then we come and look at other headlines. See, hapo ni sawa? Yes.
Ni sawa sawa.
Now that the SMS, the phone that was sending SMSs was finally loaded with credit. You know, they wrote the first message, send, it didn't send. Wrote the same message, send, it didn't send. Isi moina credit. Nani? So you let the Bambas 50 hapo. He loaded.
For one
They
guy
came.
in the Republic.
Or perhaps they're making up for the delay.
Yes. One for every week.
It's like, Nani, don't feel bad. This
Take
is a
and
very
for
weak
that,
one.
take another one.
Yes, I don't feel
Still
really
okay?
bad. Do another one.
29 minutes after 6. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Time for a break. Let's see what's happening on the roads.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
It's time to answer questions that are worthwhile. The Big Quiz Show is here. Register to play from the comfort of your home by SMSing the word JOIN to 23774. Then watch the live show on KTN every Sunday from 8 p.m. where you could have a chance to win a melee. The fastest and most accurate answers are guaranteed to win. The Big Quiz Show, Sundays at 8 p.m. only on KTN.
Okay, so it's not looking so bad on the roads this morning. Getting off of Thika Road into the CBD is actually looking quite good. Jogo Road from Donholm, very clear. From Makadara until Lekoni Junction, it's slowing down a little bit, but it's not at a bumper to bumper. So those who got out early are having that good time on the roads this morning. All right, let's look at Mombasa Road. Definitely going to slow down some. More of the road, especially around General Motors, has then been taken up. So that lane is kind of skinny right there, okay? So that means very few vehicles can pass at one time, then gives rise to the traffic that we see. Yesterday, traffic on Mombasa Road was crazy, especially going into the afternoon. Let's see what it looks like this morning and hope it's not too bad. But we know that with the construction, things are going to be massive. Just be prepared for that in and outbound on Mombasa Road today and then moving forward. All right, let's see as the sun comes up what traffic will look like in about half an hour or so. Are you stuck somewhere? You found a good route that you can use? Let us know and we can spread the word. SpiceFMKE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Spice FM, Malindi.
Twenty-eight minutes to 7. Headline.
Okay, so according to this report in the Standard today, crisis as hospitals run out of medical oxygen. So there's a need for oxygen, that is clear. Medical oxygen is part of essential supplies running out as the third wave of the COVID-19 continues to wreak havoc across the country. Although the National Treasury allocated 2.7 billion shillings under the Kenya COVID emergency response plan, there was no specific allocation for medical oxygen. Many patients have thus succumbed, like Ruben Githinji, for example, the Embu-based journalist who died 2 weeks ago after being admitted at the Embu County Hospital with breathing difficulties. The World Bank granted Kenya 5 billion shillings from the for the Kenya COVID emergency response plan. The government used 1.2 billion earmarked for isolation wards to boost medical oxygen supply, but biting shortage still persists in most counties. The situation has been worsened by Kenyans and medical facilities hoarding medical oxygen cylinders, leading to sharp increase in the cost, further pushing healthcare out of reach for economically COVID-ravaged Kenyans now under lockdown in 5 diseased counties: Nairobi, Kiambu, Machakos, Kajiado and Nakuru. The scarcity of medical oxygen during the third wave of the pandemic is causing untold misery and unnecessary deaths. So what are we looking at now? 95% of the minimum oxygen concentration level COVID-19 patients need. That's what is needed.
Yeah.
For every patient who is at that point. The oxygen level in the air is about 2%. That's what's normal, natural, when we breathe in naturally. 95% is what COVID patients needs. 500, looking at this now in figures, 588 million, the amount required to roll out the first phase of recommendations to boost oxygen supplies in 76 COVID-19 facilities in 16 counties. 1,900 shillings. That's the average cost of refilling a 340-litre oxygen tank. 73 is the number of oxygen plants in the country. 410 tons is the average demand of medical-grade oxygen before the pandemic. 50,000 is the approximate number of medical cylinders in the country, but only 60% of these are in circulation. 880 is the demand in March this year. So 410 tons is what is normally used in a year. Is the average demand of oxygen before the pandemic. That has gone to 880 tons in March this year. 10 to 15 is the liters of oxygen dispensed per minute through a mask. So you can imagine how much everybody needs when they're on a ventilator and need this oxygen. So there's a problem.
What is hindering us from producing more oxygen?
This is the question.
What is
Limited number of plants.
Yes.
There are only 73 in the country.
That is fine. See, they were not 73 when we got independence, India.
No.
Yes, see, they were built. All right? With modern technology, the production of oxygen doesn't have to be as laborious and capital intensive as they seem to want to mention here. All right? That's number one. We contain these things in cylinders at some point, isn't it? All right? Do we manufacture those cylinders? Do we buy them?
Some of them are manufactured.
Precisely. So, again, it means they can be manufactured.
Yes.
But yesterday you mentioned something that I liked. Why don't they just pipe the oxygen? Why don't hospitals just come up with a plan to actually, like the Nakuru governor told us, they produce their own oxygen. You know, we're not dealing with a situation that is completely out of our hands.
Yeah.
It's like there's nothing we can do about the existence of COVID. We can do something about restricting it. But the production of oxygen, the storage of oxygen, making it available, is something we can do.
Sure.
We can do.
And I don't think, I know that Mutahi Kagwe has talked about and even non-governmental organizations have talked, and even like the Kenya Healthcare Federation have talked about Kenyans, imploring Kenyans and those who are hoarding cylinders in their homes to bring them out. But then the question is, how many are they that is going to actually help this situation? And so that should not be the solution that is being looked at right now. Manufacture, buy. What do you need to do? Because what is being hoarded in homes of Kenyans is not enough to solve this problem.
Why do they have them in their homes in the first place?
Because they have to buy them.
Precisely.
They needed
so they're going
them.
to give it back to you, and yet
They don't know.
Why should
they will surrender them when we no longer have COVID and it's no longer a threat. So that story, shelve
Forget
it.
about it.
Forget it.
Shelve it.
You
That
can
should
even
not be
see
looked
the
as
story
as
here
an
has been
option.
told of this particular Simon Kirathe, a resident of Busara village in Nyandarua County, who says his father, John Kirathe, who was 76, was admitted with COVID-related symptoms at the Nyahururu General Hospital, but could not access oxygen. The neighboring Laikipia County did not have oxygen, and medics advised Simon to try the Othaya Level 6 hospital as the father struggled with shortness of breath. They hired an oxygen cylinder at 1,500 to support the father's life during referral. So you think that this person who was hiring out a cylinder
He's going to give it back
is
to
going
you.
to give you...
Look, nobody...
Even the person who was using the oxygen at home and the person passed, they're
Believe
not going
me,
to hand it
if
over.
somebody who has that cylinder at home and there's no one sick, they're not going to give it to you.
Yep.
It's an emergency measure that they have determined they're going to have.
But really, should that be the focus? To say that people who have oxygen cylinders in their homes bring them, and then miraculously, when they bring them, they're going to sort out this oxygen shortage issue? It's not going to solve the
All right.
problem.
While
That should not be where
while
we're looking for
at it,
solutions.
Anybody who has more than one pair of shoes, or two, let's say
bring so
two,
we can-
bring so that people who don't have shoes in the country can
Surely.
get shoes.
Should
That
that be the
makes more
solution?
sense to me, because then people will likely get shoes to wear. Shoes, if you don't wear, if you walk barefooted, you're not suddenly going to die of shortness of breath. However, no, you won't. Some thorns may make you uncomfortable, and the truth is, your feet will get used to it at some point. Oxygen, this is a life-saving measure. It isn't a luxury, okay? So it's not something that people will give up. It's like, you shouldn't smoke, give it up. No. This is different. A solution that is lasting is ensuring that we are producing enough oxygen. If you
And
need
can store it.
Yes, we are manufacturing enough cylinders. Or wherever these cylinders come from, get them from wherever we get them from.
You know, the greater thing
Kenyans
here
are hoarding, so?
is that the Ministry of Health and the counties were just talking for a whole year.
Yes, they were.
They didn't do anything. Now again, Mutahi Kagwe is speaking like as if it's an emergency, like, oh my God, we need oxygen.
And the reason why we don't
It's
have
not
is
the
because
first time he
Kenyans
has
are
talked
hoarding the
about
cylinders.
oxygen. It's not the first time that he's held a meeting with the oxygen manufacturers. And when they were having a conversation with the oxygen manufacturers the other day, it was not the first time. So what is it that you've done for a whole year to make sure, should we get here, we will be sorted? Should we get here, we will have oxygen in our facilities?
We knew we needed oxygen.
Yes.
We knew there would be another wave. We knew because the experts told us. And it isn't the first time they've told us something which has come to pass exactly as they told us.
Yeah.
So, and you know those experts, you know where they are? They are in the Ministry of Health.
Yeah.
Or they're affiliated to the Ministry of Health. they're not in the Ministry of Environment, Health. So, but let me pause for a while and maybe request those who make these decisions and then announcement, they should also pause and take a deep breath. And while taking a deep breath, let air get into the system before they open their mouths to speak. Because sometimes they say things and I would rather they didn't say it. Okay? Asking people to give back oxygen, how on earth is that
Give
going to
back
help a
something-
national crisis?
Can we look at another story?
Yeah, let's look at this Russian vaccine. Still questions being raised about the presence of privately procured and privately sold vaccine in the country at this time of an emergency. All right? Questions have been asked. Yesterday, Rarieda MP Otiende Amolo wrote to the Pharmacy and Poisons Board requesting more information about the importation of the vaccine. He says, whereas you issued a public pronouncement that you had granted emergency use approval to a private pharmacy in Kenya, details of which remain shrouded, the Ministry of Health came out stating that there was no vaccine currently approved for sale in Kenya. So private hospitals in the country had already gone to the market, issuing various statements on the availability and dispensing of this vaccine, ranging from 11,000 shillings to 19,000 shillings. Questions about, all right, so who is this who's been allowed to import the vaccine? Is there any check that is ensuring that the vaccine that was been allowed for importation is a vaccine that is actually being availed to the people? Controlling the price, ranging from 11,000 to 19,000. That means shortly it will go to 25,000. Shortly it will be 30.
Yes.
Shortly somebody else will come with another vaccine. This is Moderna, this is Pfizer, and they'll be charging whatever they want to charge. Is the government in control of this whole process? And at this point, should we be talking about all these issues, or should we actually also be focusing on increasing this AstraZeneca vaccine?
It's a valid point you're making, Eric, because right on the heels of the cancer scandal, are we seeing another cancer situation developing here with the vaccines? But you had cautioned, you had mentioned, said, with this vaccine, we'd hate to see it, but knowing our people as we do, and given the profiteering mindset that they have, vaccine, a problem for Kenyans, they'll see it as something to profit from. Kenyans don't seem to have, some Kenyans don't seem to have a problem profiting from people's misery.
No.
None whatsoever.
It's business. It's nothing personal. That's what they'll say.
Actually, it is personal.
They'll say.
Where lives are concerned, it is personal.
Very personal.
It's very, very personal. Can anything get more personal?
Anna, that other headline?
Auctions return as loan defaults hit 13-year high. Banks intensify property seizures to clean their books at the time of pain tied to COVID-19 pandemic. The share of loan defaults has increased to a 13-year high in the wake of COVID-19 economic fallout, setting up thousands of borrowers for property seizures, blacklisting, and credit references. Okay? The total in Kenya shillings billion that are a contribution of defaults are 432 billion. Latest CBK data shows that 14.5% of all loans, or 432.45 billion, were defaults by the end of February, up from 349 billion a year ago.
Hey. So already we have hit those defaults again.
Yes, but remember, even as we talk about the banks doing what they must do, they were doing this before the government put in measures to sort of like try and cushion the borrowers. And there was one little problem. Who to buy the property?
Yes.
Yes, you will seize it. Yes, you'll want to sell it. Who's
buying?
In such a situation, people who have cash are not going to dispose of their cash. No, they'll keep their cash.
No. It's going to be a tough one.
Or it is already a tough one, and it's going to continue being a really tough one. Yes.
It's a tough one.
But let me just mention in passing that the Minister for Finance is seeking an extension of public debt relief to 2022. Okay?
From who? The Chinese?
The people we borrowed from.
The Chinese, or these are the French Paris Club?
Well, in January, we secured deals to suspend debt services for the Paris Club, okay, for countries and other debtors, including China, covering the 6 months to the end of June this year. I don't understand how these things work, but given that COVID is not going to come to an end soon, okay, maybe the 6 months is the installment you can get. Why don't you just ask for 2 years? Because after all, we have been paying these debts. It's not as though we defaulted from day one. We have been paying. Or it's structured so that we pay less. If indeed we must pay. Restructured so that we pay less. But we can't be in this situation where what the country collects in order to attend to its business is actually just being paid off in loans.
I mean,
it is useless. Now, that is a useless situation.
Tumefika mahali pabaya.
Yes. We've engaged reverse gear.
Tumefika mahali pabaya. It's 6:45. Let's take another break and then come and look at other headlines. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
We've been all through it, you know. We go to school, study hard, get the much-deserved grades, and celebrate our graduation. Then reality hits us. We get to the job market and we simply don't know where to start off. Thankfully, by visiting jobs.standardmedia.co.ke, your next career breakthrough could be a click away. Get the best in career advice, employment opportunities, internships, part-time jobs, CV writing, and interview coaching. Give your career the much-needed lift on jobs.standardmedia.co.ke.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
Minutes to 7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Yesterday, the CS for transport infrastructure, all those many other things, was inspecting this expressway that's being put up between JKIA and ABC Place Westlands. The Kenya National Highways Authority has been granted access to the land on the way leave of the Nairobi Expressway. It was confirmed by the CS, James Masharia, when he was inspecting this 27-kilometer highway yesterday, the elevated road from JKIA all the way to Westlands. So he was saying, so far, what he's inspected and what he has seen is 33% of the project is complete. He says the government expects the elevated highway, which is progressing at 60 meters a day from both ends, to be completed by the end of this year. And he was instructing the contractor to strictly observe COVID-19 health protocols and implement the project with minimal disruption to citizens. Now, I wonder whether the CS actually used the highway from where is Transcom House? That's somewhere in Milimani. So he joins Uhuru Highway, comes all the way to JKIA because he went to inspect that turnoff at JKIA. Did he pass by this place that has a huge pothole?
You know, it's getting worse. It isn't a pothole. The road is actually a series of ever-deepening potholes.
Yes.
There's actually some road between the potholes. That's what we're
Yes,
saying.
yes. It's predominantly potholes. You know, when you drive, you're not sure. You see a pothole and then you think you'll turn left. There's the pothole there is even deeper.
Yes, it's a crater.
Yes.
So the CS, okay, in his big Prado, maybe he did not notice and he was at the back and maybe he was on the phone with somebody. He didn't notice. But that's what's happening. So today, they've actually now narrowed it down to a single lane at that capital center
It
where
is
there's a
single
diversion.
lane of potholes.
Single lane of potholes because they're trying to work on the other side.
No, a single lane of craters, actually.
Yes.
You would first of all dip, and then it's higgledy-piggledy. You move to the side, then you move to the left. And by the way, that's your car moving, you know?
Yes.
Okay, because it's one hole, and then another, and then another. And it's what, for something like 60 meters?
Yes.
It's a bit crazy.
And you ask yourself, what? So, okay, the CS was in one vehicle. He must have come with some other officers who were in a separate vehicle who must have noticed. We can say the Kenha officials, because their office is at JKIA, they have not been using this road. But surely, you should know. There's somebody who has earned a salary in March and they're busy, they're sitting down at Kenha, they're in charge of this project, or at the ministry, they're in charge of the project. They cannot clearly see what's happening there.
And then they'll be surprised when a road user sues them because their car has been damaged by that particular pothole.
Yes.
And they'll say, you know, Kenyans
Kenyans are not patriotic. They don't support their country. I'm sure this company that is working on this road, it's a Chinese company. If they were doing this road in the Chinese capital of Beijing or another major city, Shanghai, Xi'an,
not even
Guangzhou,
major city, in any part
In
of
any part of China.
Part of
their
China.
country,
they would
you
not
see
do this kind of nonsense.
No.
They wouldn't.
No, you wouldn't.
And they're doing it here because they are getting the vibe from the people who are supposed to be inspecting them.
It doesn't matter.
Kenyan
Doesn't
National
matter.
Highways
Just do what you
Authority.
need to do.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. And it's unfortunate. Because just like you said, they wouldn't do it at home.
They cannot do
They
this.
wouldn't. They wouldn't.
You know, you wouldn't get away. You know, that country is a bit progressive when it comes to these things. You make the mistake of such a thing, you can actually get yourself shot.
Yes,
For
off
real.
with your head.
Yes, for real.
So mobile money transactions hit 11.4 billion shillings daily. Kenyans transferred more than 1 trillion shillings through mobile money in the last 3 months of last year. According to industry statistics from the Communications Authority of Kenya, the value of person-to-person cash transfers marked a 15% increase to 1.31 billion compared to 896 billion recorded in the last 3 months, ending September 2020. I'm sorry, the previous number was trillion. The number of active registered mobile money subscriptions stood at 32.2 million, while the number of active mobile money agents stood at 264,390 during the review period. Customer-to-business transactions recorded a 33% increase from 735 billion in the first quarter to 983 billion as consumers shunned cash payments to curb the spread of COVID-19. I guess there are many things happening here. People are spending without face-to-face contact, and people are now embracing more and more the use of a cashless service when it comes to business that needs to be done. Vibrant still, I guess.
There's a lot of money that changes hands in Kenya.
There really-
That just
there really
shows you
is.
there's some good business being made by those that have invested in these platforms. But also tells you that, Kenyans are really entrepreneurial.
A lot of, I mean, I think about the businesses that have opened in the last 1 year.
Yep.
And that don't have a physical location, but are online, for example, and you don't really see them, but the service or the product gets to you, you pay by mobile transfer, and business continues.
Yep.
There are very many that have opened in the last 12 months.
That's indeed true. That's true.
A little bit of relief for KQ, if I can just jump to that.
Uh-huh.
Kenya Airways has been handed some reprieve with the government exempting it from paying income tax. In a Gazette notice, National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ukur Yatani said the company will be exempted from paying the recently introduced minimum tax, which compels loss-making firms to pay tax on revenues as opposed to the trade taxation on profit. The tax, introduced as an amendment to the Income Tax Act by the Finance Act 2020, requires all firms to pay the tax regardless of whether or not they make a profit. In the exercise of the power conferred by the Income Tax Act, the CS for the National Treasury and Planning directs that the income derived from an accrued by Kenyan Airline in which the government owns at least 40% of its shares and the subsidiaries of that airline shall be exempt from the provision of the Section 12D of the Act. So, a little bit of reprieve for
That's
Kenya
some good
Airways.
reprieve for Kenya Airways. And that's what I think the retailers were asking for. The same.
Yes.
We have gotten into April. It's time to pay the first installment of this minimum tax. Can we get a reprieve? Because minimum tax, it doesn't matter. It's just on your revenues. So the kind of revenues that you've made, pay 1% to carry. Some businesses, that 1% is actually their margin. So you're basically saying the margin, that how much have you made? 1% is your margin. I still need 1%. Huh? There's some that are really, 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 really hit. And that conversation about the minimum tax, again, our parliament.
You know what is so strange is that the CS for Health got it right. Very, very right indeed. When you talked about the abnormality of the situation that we're in,
Yeah.
what is required is a really abnormal way of thinking, if I may use that term loosely here. Lateral thinking is the term that is often used when it comes to thinking, as we Kenyans like saying, outside the box. You cannot think and talk about solutions that have worked in the past for other conditions in this particular situation. This one requires a complete rethink, an absolute and clear rethink. Yes. Because everything that is being said will be repetitive, and the results we can even foretell.
Yeah.
If you're thinking that way and you're going to do this, what the end result will be this, we know. But we want to move out of there. There's a question we raised yesterday when we were talking to the CEO of Big Square. Okay? Instead of saying, okay, we are going to be locked down, so since we're locked down, we can't do this. I think people in that line of business should be asking, right, how can we go about our business and be safe?
Yes.
How can people eat within our premises and be safe? How can we ensure that beyond takeaway, people are safe? Because the idea that we understand what a lockdown does, but we also understand that people can be kept safe.
Yes.
All right? So how do you marry the two?
So the focus. So you're saying the focus has been on, let me just get my business and my profits in only.
Yes,
The focus should be widened a little bit
No,
and saying,
widen
in
the
as
thinking
much as we
completely.
are trying to make money and profit, how can we do this while making sure that Kenyans are not?
I think that question, they have asked themselves that question, and they came up with that 275-page protocols, right? Which is what is being implemented, which is what is being inspected. What is it that you can do to ensure that you can continue your business while maintaining safety? Reduce the number of the seating capacity by 50% in your restaurant. Make sure that there is space between one person and the other. Make sure that there is sanitation and make sure that your staff are getting tested is it 2 weeks or 3 weeks? They get a certificate. Every 3 months, there's inspection that's coming from the Ministry from Public Health. An inspector comes and gives you a fresh certificate every 3 months because they're coming to check whether you are actually adhering to all these protocols. I think they've started answering that. They invested heavily into all these things.
They did because epidemiologists and experts and virologists gave their advice, and it is sound advice. I am thinking about marrying the practicality of epidemiology with the common sense of business. You see, COVID is not going to end tomorrow or the day after or in December this year. It won't.
It will not.
How do you live with it and remain safe? You see, remember when I talked about cabins being created by some restaurants in the West?
Yes.
Beyond the distances that you're talking about, they've thought of something else. I am saying, don't limit your thinking to what already exists. That's really what I'm saying. Keep thinking about it. When COVID first hit our shows, there were some emergency measures we had to take, and strictly so, just so that we can get a handle of it. These waves, it's not the first time. This is a reoccurrence, and there'll be yet another occurrence, and there'll be mutations. There are all these things. Now, in the face of the reality that we're going to be living with COVID, what decision then do you make? Remember, some of the countries like France, some of these other countries in Europe, they joked around with the COVID. They didn't immediately shut down when other countries were shutting down. No, they sort of like opened it up, and then the thing got out of hand completely. Now, we were fortunate. We actually did shut down, and then we opened up. Our thinking can be guided by what we see others doing, but we must also look at the reality of living and surviving with COVID. That's what I am saying. Yes.
Indeed.
Beyond lockdowns.
As we come to the top of the hour, let's just do this one. The residents of Garissa will not need to go for a by-election because there's no challenger to the one candidate who's presented himself to become the next senator of Garissa County. The son of the former senator Yusuf Haji, the son Abdul Haji, is the only candidate, and therefore he's unopposed, and therefore no need to hold any expensive exercise there. Hata wazee wamekubali, the wazees have said he's the best. Everybody else just don't bother. That's it. So
Done, dusted.
yep,
Okay.
Mzee Yusuf Haji's son is going to be the senator of Garissa County for the remainder of this term, at least until next year. And then now after next year, we see what do the people of Garissa County want. Do they want to give Abdul Haj this position again or not? Keep it right here. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. In the next hour, we talk about climate change, and we also ask ourselves, April Fools, who's being fooled here in this country? Are we fooling ourselves? Are we fooling each other? Are we being fooled? That's a conversation we'll be having. And also in the 8 o'clock hour, we ask ourselves what ODM wants. And then we ask ourselves, who are the candidates for the Chief Justice position? Good morning. It's now 7 o'clock.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
Okay, so let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 trailers are stuck on the highway between Syokimau and Cabanas. So what does this mean? Traffic. And is it already building up? Yes, it is. Is it going to be crazy on Mombasa Road today? Yes, it is. Because we've just officially started traffic hour. These 4 trailers are stalled. They have not started to be worked on to be moved, and traffic has already built up in
Like no other, the Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room. The only way to...
7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Welcome to the second hour of the show. We are now also live on KTN Home, in addition to being live on SpiceFM and online. SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, spicefm.co.ke. Today's proverb, Bonamuga.
The fate that befalls the lowly will befall the leader.
The fate that befalls the lowly
Will befall the leader.
befall the leader. John, what did you say, John? John, I think, wants to give some money to anybody who can decipher this. He
John
just found
wants
it
to give
interesting.
money.
Yes.
All right, that is John making a personal contribution to this. Okay. And what exactly is he contributing the 10,000 shillings for?
Something. Is it 10K? 10.
For what exactly?
Decipher this proverb
Goodness.
before midday today.
John's generosity, I must say,
It knows no bounds this morning.
it does have bounds. It's 10,000.
This morning. Talking about John.
Okay, let's talk about climate change, right? The Group CEO of the Kenya Climate Innovation Center, Dr. Edward Mungai, we spoke with him a couple of weeks back, and he's back because there is a report that they've released, The Landscape of Climate Finance in Kenya. And this is a report that's out there. So we want to understand, so that's first of all, landscape, climate finance, Kenya.
You know, you get the impression that you can't have a conversation in this day and age without talking environment, climate, greenhouse effect. I mean, somewhere along the line. So if I'm late to work, I can say, it was a greenhouse effect.
I thought you were going to say it was the climate.
Yes. Or if I want a bank loan, they don't give it to me, I say, no, it's climate change.
It's climate change.
Yes.
Things are changing.
Yes.
Dr. Mungai, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for having me again.
Good to have you. So this report, before we even go into the report, let's just start with the terminologies. What is climate finance?
Well, this is a way that we finance projects in the sense that they respect climate change. And respecting climate change here means that you're looking both at adaptation but also mitigation. And I like what Muga is talking there, that when you go to the banks, you tell them about climate change and they will finance you. This is the kind of financing, and we have seen more and more banks in Kenya, as the report says, really willing to provide financing to people who are implementing projects looking at climate change angle and ensuring that we have a better planet.
So projects such as planting trees.
Could
looking
be, and
at
that
energy efficiency.
Not just energy, sustainable energy, clean energy.
Clean energy.
Yeah, when you bring in that language, yes.
Best out us. Okay, and now this report that you released, Dr. Mungai, the Climate Finance in Kenya report, what is the background to this report?
Well, first of all, is also, to acknowledge, first of all, the donors who funded this, which is the German government. But more importantly, also to say that, Kenya in 2015 signed what is called the climate agreement in Paris. And within that agreement, Kenya really specified that they were going to cut emissions by about 30%. Now, subsequently, last December, the government of Kenya, obviously being a very progressive government as far as climate change is concerned, upgraded that and said we are going to cut emissions by 32%, which is one of the countries which upscaled and said that we are going a little bit further than what we had committed before. Based on that, for us to be able to ensure that we have the 32% cut on emissions, there must be financing. And the UNFCCC, which is the body tasked with issues of climate change, have specified that they require $100 billion every year if we are going to remain at 1.5 degrees centigrade. Now, based on that being the background, coming home, we need to figure out what is it exactly we need to do to achieve the objectives that the government have already committed to, but also to ensure that we have, a better planet and we are safeguarding the future of our generations.
If I may ask, Daktari, if you look at the emissions that come out of Kenya as a contribution to the deadly emissions that the rest of the world produces, what percentage would you say is our share?
Well, I must say it's minimal, but also I'm very quick to say that, climate change is not a country-based problem. This is a global problem, and irrespective of how much you are emitting, obviously the people who are emitting more affect you. And if you can be able to take it as a duty and responsibility, for instance, as a country, and figure out how, even if you are, emitting very little, you can be able to leverage on what others have done before and to cut on emissions, that would be good news. And I think this is exactly the same trajectory that most countries, if not all countries in our continent, are taking, as opposed to assuming that this is our time to to pollute. This is our time to eat. You remember that book sometimes back where they were saying this is our time now to emit. And indeed, what we have seen is that countries are becoming more responsible.
You know why I asked the question, Daktari, is because if what other countries do affect us, and I laud the statement that you've made with reference to us doing our bit, but then does it not follow that what they do in terms of the negative impact of our environment will affect us whether we do our bit or not?
It will, but I'm also quick to say that, there is concerted effort globally. U.S. just the other day with Biden, they came back to the to the Paris Agreement, and this is a good signal because each and every country in the world is trying to push their own way on how they can mitigate and adapt to this challenge. And I tell you, we talk about COVID, we talk about COVID pandemic, but I think this is the biggest pandemic that is facing us, only that it takes a bit of time to happen. And therefore, that's why, for sure, this argument of that it is our time, others are polluting, let's also do this, I think that is already overtaken by events.
Dr. Mungai, is it possible for countries in the global south, for example, is it possible for countries to develop while also taking all this climate change and environmental protection into consideration? Because just coming off of what you've just said, that's the question. It's not that countries are saying it's our time to also pollute, but it is our time to develop and manufacture. Is there a nexus that can be found between the two where you can create a balance? Because countries want to develop who did not have an opportunity to do so 50 years ago.
That's right, and the contrary is also true. And in fact, if you don't, what you're referring to is what you call business as usual kind of, model. But we must move away from that, and we say it's business unusual. Let me just give you some statistics here. Kenyan economy is about $100 billion in terms of the GDP. Now, if we continue in the trajectory and climate change is really causing about between 2 to 3% of the GDP is lost to climate change every year. We are talking about $2-3 billion being lost out of climate change. Apparently, that is exactly the same amount of money that we have mapped out that is coming to the country every year. So that tells you that if this money is not, basically we are replacing the GDP which is being lost by climate change. We need to do better. And that raises the question of how much then do we need to put as far as climate change is concerned. It's between $7 and $10 billion every year that we need to put in. And truly, we cannot develop without taking care of climate change. As you can see, it is cutting out about 2-3% of our GDP on a yearly basis.
So now you talk about then Kenya being part of this agreement to cut by 32%, right? Am I right? What you had said before.
Different countries have committed different things. Kenya have committed 32%. Before we had committed about 30%. We increased it by 2%. And that's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
2%, it's a big deal, yes.
From what you see now in terms of agreements then between government and, of Kenya and other global partners and countries, has Kenya achieved the 32 or is it a work in progress?
This is obviously a work in progress, and the target is actually to 2030.
Okay.
So it's a progress, it's trajectory that by 2030 we want to have, reduced emissions by about 32%. But at the same time, obviously, and I like you say that international partners are part of the game. Private sector is also part of the game. Public sector is also part of the game. And clearly the report shows us where this money is coming from.
So where is the money coming from? And in what form? And where is it going?
Well, we do have, what we have mapped out is about $2.4, billion of cash coming through. Out of that, about $1 billion is coming from the private sector, which is very commendable in that sense. About 1.4 is coming from public sources. And public sources here, about 30% of it is coming locally. About the other 70% or 55% is coming from international sources. When you talk about international sources, just using my organization as an example, where we have been a beneficiary of about 5 billion shillings to fight climate change. This is obviously coming from Danish government, is coming from the European Union, and the way we use that money is really to help, businesses and small and medium enterprises, for that matter, to think climate change and look at climate change as an opportunity by providing them, concessionary financing, helping them with research, helping them with business advisory, but at the same time also providing the private sector with consultancy services that then would help them to unlock the financing that is coming. Because truly, as you can see those numbers, there is quite a bit of money which is coming through.
So this is money that's coming from external sources?
Well, as I said, it is twofold. So when I say twofold, and let me first the private sector. The money for private sector is about $1 billion. That $1 billion, 60% of it is coming from international organizations, meaning international companies. You may talk about Unilever, you may talk about Vodafone, you may talk about, things like Lake Turkana Wind Power, which is funded by FMO and different people. But then there is also another 40% which is coming from local companies. And local companies here, it's what KCB is, what Safaricom is, what even small and medium enterprises like Maize Foods from Eldoret, Ofgen from Nairobi, what they are doing. All this is what now accounts for about another 40% of that. But when you look at the public sector again, it's about $1.4 billion. About 70 or 45% of that is coming from local sources. Meaning money from Kenya, but the other difference is coming from international sources. And truly, Eric, what these numbers are saying is that, it's hope. There is hope, but I'm quick to note that we require between $7 to $10 billion. We only have $2 billion. So there is still a gap, about 3-4 times gap, that we need, to leverage and to capitalize so that the money can help us.
This is a huge gap. With a 2.4 billion, before I ask you what the gap would look like, with a 2.4 billion, what kind of impact have you seen?
Well, look at some of the projects that, for instance, have been done in our continent. Well, not even continent, in Kenya. Lake Turkana Wind Power, 320 megawatts project of wind. Look at what KenGen is doing. Look at what the company I was telling you called Maize Food is doing, which is really working with farmers who are making chiri for export. And they have been able to attract, some money in terms of climate financing. Look at what, KCB is doing now with GCF, Global Climate Fund. They have been able to get $150 million for that. So this is the kind of, trajectory that we are seeing within the sectors.
Would you say that countries that are financing these activities, I think, having contributed, this is a statement I'm making, having contributed significantly to the harm that we are referring to, understand it better than most of us. And because of that, they are eager to ensure that it doesn't go beyond the boundaries that it has already gone to. Would I be making a fair statement? Well,
to some extent, I must say that it might be the statement in the sense that, of course, the pre-industrial development and, that revolution, that was all about emissions, and we didn't catch up with that. So now we are in a place where we want to develop, but remember also there are people who gone through that phase. They come up with innovations that are helping them, obviously, to mitigate and reduce emissions. And I think our job at this point and where this money is coming is also to help us, to piggyback on some of the technologies that they've been working, because also they have realized, yes, it's a disaster, and it's not only a disaster for us, it's for everybody, and that's why developed and developing countries must tag into this game and we play the game together.
It's a catch-22 situation, because then which country are we going to say would be willing to halt the development plans? Because anytime you talk about development, you are talking about energy consumption. And it's this consumption of energy that brings about this situation that we are now engaged in discussing. So the question is, how do we continue with our development problem? How do we consume energy or produce energy that we can consume and yet ensure that we don't add to the problem that we already have? I believe that is the debate that we're having now. Is that not it?
Yeah, and Muga, the word is not, the word that I want to use here is mainstreaming. So that we need to mainstream climate change, we may need to mainstream sustainable development, sustainability within development. And what that means is that, for instance, when I apply, and you started this debate, Muga, when I go to Kenya Commercial Bank and I want to apply for a loan to, build a set of apartments, the first question they should be able to ask me is that, how well are you taking care of social issues? How well are you taking care of environmental issues? And if then and they are pushing me, to put mechanisms that I can be able to take care of the environment. And I think this is the mainstreaming that we require. And it is known globally that development can be combined with green growth, and this can be able to bring even more sustainable development than what I was calling business as usual before.
Can you paint a practical picture for us? Because people we hear climate change, we hear environmental protection and things like this. And for a lot of people, the first thing that pops into the mind is, all right, so Kenya needs to plant a bunch of trees over the next 10 years. But what else? What are we really looking at when it comes to getting a change in the climate that is essentially going to protect the environment? What exactly are we looking at?
Yeah, and it's kind of start with the individuals. Let me start from the individual perspective. It's the way we are consuming and the way we are producing. It's amount of, the food that we are wasting. It's amount of water that we are wasting. It's amount of energy that we are using at home. Can we be able to change that and to make it more efficient, to make it more effective, and to be more sustainable? When it comes to about companies that you are talking about, it's not only about planting trees. It's also or growing trees for that matter. It's also for companies to start thinking of replacing their energy sources with renewable energy sources. It's how they handle waste. Is how they are using resources and materials within the sector. For instance, East African breweries, for that matter. How much water are they using to make alcohol, to make beer? How efficient are they? Water is not, is a scarce resource, and they must be able to respect it. So these are some of the narratives that need to be put onto place, and hopefully companies, individuals, and government also have a role in terms of providing that enabling environment through policies and standards. And I must say they've done their part, but we still need to plug in this gap that we are talking about.
How can government be directly involved? I mean, I'm thinking about some of the campaigns just within this that we see coming out from other countries, and then there's messaging that is audience specific, that is targeted to the people. For conservation of water, for example, we see these. Do you think those are messages that kind of messaging can work here, whereby you're asking people to conserve something that sometimes they don't see? And so when they see it, they're going to use it. I'm thinking about people who don't have access to clean water on a daily basis. And this is the messaging that then essentially would come to government, and they're saying, well, we're trying to conserve this resource, which we hardly see. Do you think such messaging then would resonate?
Yeah, indeed, one of the biggest challenges that we have seen over time, there are three components. One is about the policy framework, the other one is about financing, and the third challenge that is the awareness creation. And what you are touching on is on awareness creation. We must be able to preach the gospel that we must be able to change the way, again, we consume and produce things, both from individual, from country, and from companies level. And that message must be championed, because the moment we tell people the consequences and we tell them in a language that they can be able to understand, that's how we can be able to get traction. The financing and the policy side of things, those somehow we have the control. But when it comes to awareness creation, we have to roll our sleeves. We have to go deep and be able to tell, Kenyans, including the Wanjiko in the grassroots, what are the effects of climate change? What can they be able to do? It's not only about planting trees. It's also about many other things. And that messaging is what, for instance, as an organization, as KCIC, we've been trying to spread that gospel, at the same time trying to help and show that there is actually hope, and also showing people how it can be done.
For those who would like to see this report, where can they get it?
Well, the report is available also on our website. It's also available on Climate Policy Initiative website, and also from the government, from the Ministry of Finance, is also available from there, because this was a collaboration also with the Ministry of Finance.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Mungai, for speaking to us today. We hope to engage with you again soon.
Thank you, and all the best, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Edward Mungai is the Group CEO of the Kenya Climate Innovation Center, KCIC. They've come up with this report, the Climate Finance in Kenya Report 2021. As he says, go to all those websites and you'll find it. As we take this break, let's remind you about the Standard Jobs portal, jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. A portal that gives you access to many of the jobs that have been advertised in the market in the country. For example, if you are a research associate and you'd like to intern at the World Panel Division, you can do so by just log on to jobs.standardmedia.co.ke, a record management officer with the National Biosafety Authority, a sales manager with Jumia, a truck driver with Standard Media, human resource officer with the Kenya National Hospital, Kenyatta National Hospital. All these and other jobs on jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. And you can also sign up for a newsletter that will be sent to you periodically, personalized. That means it gives you all the jobs in your area. And you can also get career advice from this particular portal. You can also get SMS alerts for jobs that have been advertised. Jobs.standardmedia.co.ke, 23 minutes after 7. Time for a break. Keep it right here.
Spice FM, Nakuru. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Are you looking for a plan this Easter holiday? Sarit Your City has got your back. Have a wonderful time with friends and family at Sarit Your City this Easter. Tune in to the Spice Drive with me, Monique, from 3 p.m. every weekday to learn more about what activities Sarit has in store for you. You also stand a chance to win shopping vouchers, and you get to join me on ground on the 2nd of April as I host the Spice Drive on location from Sarit, a city within a city. I can't wait to see you there.
It's time to answer questions that are worthwhile. The Big Quiz Show is here. Register to play from the comfort of your home by SMSing the word JOIN to 23774. Then watch the live show on KTN every Sunday from 8 p.m. where you could have a chance to win a melee. The fastest and most accurate answers are guaranteed to win. The Big Quiz Show, Sundays at 8 p.m. only on KTN.
Tengisa kidole, agano kidole.
Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources? Yet we have real challenges in this country.
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal healthcare is critical. Because at this point, whether you have a medical card that covers you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Okay, so we're still looking at rain showers in certain parts of Nairobi. It's going to go to highs of 27 today and lows of 17. Thunderstorms continue in Nyeri at 16, highs of 23 and lows of 15. 27 will be the high in Nakuru. It's partly sunny at 16. 25, the high in Eldoret. Sunny conditions at 14. And it's 21 and mostly sunny in Kisumu. It goes to highs of 28. 29 will be the high in Kakamega, 15 and partly sunny. Rain showers continue in Mombasa at 27. Going to a high of 31 today. 32 will be the high in Malindi, where it's also raining at 27. Rain showers continue in Kampala as well at 20, highs of 26 and lows of 19. It's also raining in Dar es Salaam at 24. They go to high of 30. 24 will be the recorded high in Johannesburg. It's clear right now at 15. And rain showers continue in Lagos as well at 27. It'll go to highs of 33 and lows of 26. 23 will be the low recorded in Kinshasa today. It's currently 22 and cloudy. It'll go to highs of 31. So still terrible traffic outbound on Mombasa Road this morning. It is not looking good and folks are getting quite upset. So one of those 4 trucks has been uninstalled. It was stalled. So now it's what? Okay, never mind. So one of those trucks has been moved. Okay, so 3 to go, and it's still causing some traffic though as you're trying to get towards the city. So this one requires a lot of patience this morning. Okay, Jogo Road is still slow. Coming out from the Makadara area, and then going towards Landis Road into the CBD. Not too bad on the other side. Westerns, remember, and then going towards Kikuyu. Visibility extremely poor this morning. So fog lights up, guys. You're going to need them. So please be very careful accessing that as well. SpiceFM KE, that's how we can talk it out. Text as well on 40127.
Spice up your life.
"28 minutes after 7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Is it dark in here or is it cloudy out there?
It's dark outside, and unfortunately, it's letting the darkness in here. But you can be the light of the world.
Hapana, hiyo kazi sifanyi.
Not today.
Hiyo sio kazi yangu. Kila mtu afanya kazi yake.
Wow.
In the room this and every weekday morning is CT Muga, Nduoko, and Eric Latif. And today is first day of April 2021. Again, give us a history of first day of April. What did you call them again?
No, fish in a barrel.
Fish in a barrel.
Sorry, what?
Well, there was fish somewhere, isn't it?
Yes.
So I'm just giving it a geographical...
a barrel.
Yes.
Oh,
okay.
No. So actually, what happened in France was that they changed the calendar from one calendar to now what is currently known as the Gregorian. And they never switched back. So everybody now went ahead and behaved as if they were still operating on the old calendar. And so they came to be known as Poisson d'Avril. It's the fish of April, or the fools of April, who are supposed to be gullible.
Fish of April.
Barrel. I can
3
see where
words.
I can see where barrel came from.
I got
CT.
fish. 1 out of 3. Right.
1 out of 3, you fail, my friend. That's 33%.
No.
Where are you getting 1 out of 3 and succeeding anyway?
Even the Constitution recognizes a third.
Why do you think we have a one-third gender rule?
It's not 1/3. It's actually 2/3. Get out of here.
It's a 1/3.
You cannot talk of 2/3 and exclude the 1/3. What is surely? Do. It's okay, 2/3 gender rule. It's 1/3 gender.
It's a 1/3 gender rule. Yes. No gender shall be more than 1/3.
Yeah, it's the 2/3 that we're interested in.
Hiya. So today, then, being the 1st of April, then it's a day when people are just being poisson d'avril everywhere, left, right, and center.
Fish.
Okay. So, like on page 3 of The Nation today, they're talking about the secret space center in Manyani that is attracting attention of superpowers. Yeah? So, Kenya has this secretive project that has been, that only local rocket scientists who have been involved in it for years and select government officials who have taken a special oath are privy to the development of this particular one.
Local rocket scientists.
Yes.
Okay.
We do have those.
It's okay.
We have. And many others. Stories that, you'll find on social media, things left, right, and center talking about what's funny, what's not. Kenyans usually get to laugh about this, all the time. And then they get to a point where you realize that you've been played. Have you ever been played? And you read a story or somebody called you and then later you were like, this person was pulling my leg.
Well, at what point do we consider it an adequate prank for it to qualify as pulling your leg? They pull it just a bit, they pull it completely.
All the way.
Yes, because
out.
Sometimes you have an idea that this is not entirely what they're saying it is, but you figure, let me just go along with it. The others, this one.
There's no way.
Others, you believe it completely and say, and then. So is it, when you believe it completely to be true and then it doesn't turn out to be true, then you say you've been played. Okay. Fine.
Yes. Then there are those who have been asking, so in these current times, all right, with the way everything is happening in the country, have we been in one long profuse joke for a number of years?
Joke emanating from what, the economic situation?
Yes, everything else.
COVID. Or just being Kenyan?
Yeah,
I think this can't be real.
Being Kenyan, you're basically a poisson d'avril.
Wow, congratulations.
Eric, you really onto this for something? Huh?
Oh, we.
Okay. Fish in a barrel.
Someone was saying, okay, so look at how it's panning out. Okay, today you're told, oh, we're broke. Tomorrow we're not broke. Today we want to borrow. Tomorrow we don't want to borrow. Today we are doing very well. We are actually in control of the COVID situation. Oh my God, bring oxygen masks.
Right.
No, oxygen
and then
tanks.
prices go up, and then you're told that they're going to go up even
They go
further
back
this
up
April.
again. Yeah.
It's a joke, no?
And then you're told, no, the kind of taxes that you pay, by the way, if you compare yourselves to those in Europe,
You shouldn't be complaining.
why are you complaining? You're doing okay.
I don't know why that analogy of Europe comes up when it's not necessary. What is this that we're going to use as a point of comparison within us, and not Europe, most of the really developed... Europe is huge. Huh? There are parts of Europe that could actually claim to be quasi-third world.
Yes.
They're not right up there. But, I mean, this comparison, even when you talk about it, yes, I'm hoping that the comparison is what one can do and what one can get to if one suddenly has all the ducks in a row.
Yeah.
Parallels should not be drawn between those two. It's like comparing trucks and pigs. I mean...
But by the same token, we shouldn't be comparing ourselves with our neighbors who do not do better than us economically, because we are doing badly. So if someone is doing worse than us, the man, goodness gracious me, don't you sympathize with the citizens of that particular country? Yes.
Someone is doing worse than us.
And there are many.
Yes.
And then someone will give the example and say, but if you shouldn't complain. Look at country X. And you're thinking, okay, how do you politely tell you that we don't live in that country? Okay. And much as comparisons are interesting for purposes of academia, but the reality is, what we should asking ourselves is, what is it that we can actually do that we are not doing? That's the point of comparison.
Have we exploited our full potential?
Yes.
That's always the question. So as this day, many people will be thinking about the April Fool's jokes and all. There are people who are in the business of jokes. And you see, comedians, for example, and other entertainers, on this particular day is a day where the places that they would usually make money from have been shut down because of what's happening around the country, COVID-19, right? So are they finding it funny? Is it possible to actually look at them and crack a joke, or hear from them and crack a joke? Let's speak to one of them. Doug Mutai is a stand-up comedian, and he's on the line with us. Doug, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thanks. It's good to hear you saying it's a good morning.
Yes, I am trying very hard. You have no idea, just to call it a good morning.
What does trying entail?
Trying entails just trying to be positive. And everything here it looks like it should be infuriating, but if you get angry, you tapiga ngumi ukuta, and then you get... So the only solution is right now is just to laugh about it, kabisa, because everything is a joke now. Like you're just describing being told to compare the taxes in Europe. So when you pay a euro, then I compare that tax with that one, then we see. But now you're being asked to compare taxes. There was another one the other day. They talked about, they said about the vaccine. It was very funny to me because he said, oh, don't worry, this vaccine is not approved by WHO, but if you get it and if it kills you, we will compensate you. So, how are we going to do this? Is it going through the highway that we're using, that is very high priority right now, that it's being made night and day while everything else is shut down? I don't know. It's out of this world, really.
Doug, I want to ask this question because when someone describes you as a stand-up comedian, what is a stand-up comedian, and what other comedians exist beyond the stand-up?
Oh, brilliant! So there are very many types of comedians. There's even within the stand-up themselves, there's different types as well. But there's sketch comedy comedians who act out things. There's acting, of course, comedic actors. There's, of course, stand-up now is where we are humorists. We make fun of situations as they are. We just highlight them and people get some sort of catharsis out of it, and such as what I practice in a lot of is just making fun of what is happening on the day-to-day life of people. There's other people, of course, other comedians who also just do impressions, and all these are styles that they are interwoven in a way or the other. But sometimes you just choose one line.
Looking at the situation that we're in now, Douglas, what it seems like it's a joke. People seem to be living in an alternate reality right now in the country. What kind of reprieve can you possibly find in what's going on now for a lot of Kenyans who are literally on their knees crying?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That is the sad thing. It's just, and what we do is just help people temporarily forget it. You laugh, maybe it clears your mind a little bit better. But honestly, in terms of real solutions, it's very hard for us to even give solutions to people in their field. But what we can offer is relief for them to think about their situation. They can attack it at a different angle, and because we make fun of it at a different angle. Because right now, because what can I really tell a doctor who is facing this on a daily? They don't know if they'll get paid. It's above me, but I can just make fun of that. What's happening? Or a business owner who is struggling. I can just tell them what I feel about certain things. Like, for example, I'm telling, this is what I think that relates with a lot of people. I tell people, you are broke when you come up with a minimum of 3 business ideas every day. You're so idle, you even walk to the bank to remind yourself how things used to be. But that's just the best I can do. But really, people always come out on the other hand, on the other side, successful. But I can only offer relief, honestly, because solutions here near government. But of course, also them, they are busy. They have other things to do, so they don't want to.
Like what?
Like what?
They can actually be eating the solutions. That they are busy. These people are busy. Don't be underestimating government and saying, they don't care. But they care. In fact, a few months ago, they were trying to pass the BBI, which people were Zusha, but BBI is a solution to so many things. It solves even jobs. It solves hunger issues. Hata ilikuwa na nini, the COVID vaccine was in there. If people could just wait, it had been even written in there. You would just download the procedure from BBI and you make your own vaccine at home. But people didn't want to vote. Why do you think they spent so much money having MCAs pass it? It was very important,
On a day such as this one, that we all acknowledge is a day when you have license. I'm told our producer told me until around midday to pull pranks. Okay. Is there a limit to the sort of pranks that you can actually pull?
Pranks, that's another type of comedy. And honestly, people say honestly, I like to believe there is no limit to comedy, but also, pranks are dangerous. One of our colleagues a year ago or 2 years ago was attacked because people were too high-strung to deal with the humor in the situation. I think that could still happen today if you are not careful. Your pranks have to be limited to mobile phones only. Because if you go out to the field, you don't know what they are dealing with. You just don't know. Sometimes you see people and you're like, you don't talk to this person. They're just serious here. This anger did not start here where we are. They are carrying it the whole day, and then where you have shown up with your face there, and you just fit the problem they want to solve. So it's really limited what you can do today. I mean, with COVID, with all the problems that people are dealing with, I don't know. I wouldn't advise any of my colleagues to be carrying out pranks right now.
People who are in your sphere of influence, I think if I may loosely refer to it as entertainment, how are you faring with COVID?
It's actually tough. It's quite tough. We are actually right now, we are on the tail end of firefighting for an event that we were doing the previous weekend. And for us, we don't do a lot of, our comedy is not a lot of, there's not a lot of movement. We call ourselves sit down entertainment, whereby there's not a lot of motion. People can sit in one position and laugh and go. So we were able to at least squeeze in those under 100 people events. And and when in collaborations with restaurants and bars that are also struggling. But now, when they shut it down, we had to, they shut it down, say, a day before an event, and we've been buying masks, sanitizers for the people at the door, and all these things. We've prepared. We've spent money for that event, and now we have to offer another option for our people who are coming to enjoy our shows. So it's really tough to know what is going to happen tomorrow. We're just really going by faith. And you cannot right now start saying, some of us have been doing this long enough. You cannot start doing another career right now, choosing another career, because that's another story for another. That you would have to go through the entry-level phase of everything. And those entry-level interviews are not my cup of tea anymore. You walk in there and they ask you, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? I'm telling them, you're looking at 5 years from now, right now. What do you want? I cannot go back to that right now. It's really tricky, but we are navigating. I mean, we are surviving. We are, using the grace of yesterdays and stuff like that.
Mm.
Yeah.
I mean, if I understand what you're saying now, let me turn it around and ask the question about your contribution to getting Kenyans to understand the realities of the pandemic. Okay?
Yes.
Do you include real life situations in your presentations so that you actually are in your humor making a commentary or introducing a commentary and the reality of life situations to your audience?
Absolutely. We do that every day. In fact, that's the place that I'm at right now. As a humorist, that is actually the best way to relate to your audience. Because one of the things we do is not just, we don't just do jokes. Jokes are just tools to make people laugh. But one of the biggest ways of making people laugh is actually by relating to them. And that is what we have to do every day by sharing, highlighting the irony of the situation, dissecting to just expose the absurdity of what we're dealing with as a people and as a country. So on a daily basis, that's what we do. We talk about COVID a lot. We talk about what has affected us, how it's affected other people, and what, and hope people relate and they laugh and they're like, by the way, I had to do that, or things like that, But that's actually the heart of what I do, especially.
What role does humor play in educating people? I mean, beyond having shows and so forth. Why do I say this? I'm asking this question because of the dire nature of the consequences of COVID. Huh?
Yeah.
And sometimes people, when something is humorous, are more likely to remember it than if somebody presents it in a serious fashion in a form of, say, a PowerPoint presentation, or present it in something that I have to read. Okay?
Yes.
Now, well, the question I'm asking is, is there an active participation that people who are in your line of work have taken to ensuring, beyond just the call of duty, as in continuing with what you do for a living, ensuring that this particular mode of communication is actually used in communicating change and in communicating understanding of the situation that we find ourselves in?
Yeah, absolutely. Because like I said, one of our ways of, I go back to that point of when I say we are relating with the audience, one of the things is you have to do, there's something we call an introduction and a premise or a setup. Basically, you're painting the universe. You're actually describing whatever it is, even if it means COVID. It means we are explaining in another way what exactly they've been told in a more, for lack of a better term, a more dull way. And now we're explaining it in jokes. We're using it for punchlines. And that's why, like you said, people are able to remember. Like, an example of a joke is, I said, I met this lady, she just takes my breath away. Like, whenever I see her, I just can't breathe. And now we are quarantining because those are symptoms of COVID. That's a misdirection that we just used right there to to not only address COVID, but also we've used another life example to bring it out together. So definitely what we do largely, like I say, as a humorist, that's the majority of what you have to do. You actually have to do research on whatever subject matter you are actually going to talk about. Like if you are doing an event, whether it's a Zoom event or an event with 20 people or 100 people in a corporate setting, you actually have to do research on the subject matter itself. You actually have to know subject matter beyond a layman's level so that you can be able to relate to those people who understand it beyond a layman's level, and then you can now make your jokes there based on that level.
Do you ever apply this trade of yours, I mean, prior to COVID, in school settings? As in primary school, as in secondary school, not university. Do you ever apply a trade at this level?
I've done this line of work for a long time, and I was fortunate to have worked doing this abroad, and we were able to visit colleges especially, and and just to use our humor, you were invited by colleges and universities to perform your touring. Unfortunately, locally, I know some comedians actually still do it, but a lot of people, of course, still do not consider comedy as an avenue yet. Unfortunately, they still think of it as in terms of just a distraction, as not as a tool per se. So people don't usually, when you pitch, they still don't understand how it can help them, how it can help their bottom line as a university or as a college or a school to educate the youngins. And of course, there is a lot of people that I know would really relate with the younger people through their jokes. They do a good job of that. Some of them are touring prior to COVID. But right now in Kenya, I can say we haven't really done a lot of schools. So we've just focused on mature humor and for grown-ups dealing with day-to-day life a lot, yeah.
When I hear you say all these things, and I can clearly get, the place of stand-up comedy and any other comedies. What I'm asking myself is, how do you guys prepare for a show? Do you script? Do you decide that this is going to be the theme of this particular show? Do you look at your audience in advance and see, because I am going to perform in this particular town, then I want to make sure that everything that I say is in line with how these people think?
So they know. Yes. So all of the above, actually. Yeah, you have to you research the particular place that you're going to. If they don't understand the subject matter, it won't work. Like I want to go to an event was full of Brock University students and talk about my flight last week and explain and complain about airplane food. They want that, bring that airplane food. What is he talking about? You can't complain about that. But so the idea is knowing you actually have to do all that stuff. You do that research to understand what your audience knows prior to this event, which of course can be very tricky sometimes, but you read the room as you perform, which is also another thing kicks in called improv. You learn to improv on the spot. Sometimes your jokes, the ones that you knew are not landing, so you have to start reprofiling your audience right there and then, and then you can change your material towards what you think might fit. And case in point, it's a very interesting story, actually. We had a show with, I think it was around 80 people 2-3 weeks ago, maybe it was February, socially distanced show and everything done outside. But the audience was really different. We couldn't place them right off the bat. It was not the usual audience. And that is one of those things where your knowledge comes in. You actually start probing. You actually do crowd work where you talk to the audience. You ask them, hey, how are you? What's your name? What do you do? Where are you from? And where did you grow up? And of course, while you're having these genuine conversations, you are mining those interactions for punchlines and laughs. But eventually, you are also profiling them to be able to know what is the best angle of attack for these people, for these jokes to work with them. Which jokes, which material, which theme would I be pursuing now that my initial theme didn't work? And yeah, that is an everyday thing, every gig thing, basically.
Doug Mutai, we thank you very much for speaking to us today, and we appreciate the fact that you are in an industry that has been hard hit by the COVID-19 containment measures. But we wish you all the best nonetheless, and we hope to see maybe you can come up with other ways of entertaining us through other platforms.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, we're working on that.
7 minutes to 8. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Time for us to take a quick break on KTN Home and SpiceFM and online. We'll be back shortly.
87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive and, of course, SpiceFMKE on Facebook, Instagram.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Six minutes to 8. Kenya's biggest conversation. Space of you were asking about that, where this can be used for education purposes. This can be used, for what else can comedy be used for?
The story is told when somebody is trying to explain marketing, the concept of marketing and the concept of sales, and with reference to shoes. Someone comes to this continent early in the previous century and finds shoe manufacturer and finds many people walking barefooted. Goes back and says, you know something? Let's forget that country. We can't sell those people those shoes. Somebody else comes in and says, hey, God Almighty, blessings. They don't have shoes. Goodness, how many shoes can we possibly sell here? There's an endless, there's no limit to what we can do here. The same thing with humor. You see, there are people who have a funnier bone than others. They have a certain twist and a certain way in which their mind looks at issues and conjures it into humor. And it doesn't start when they're grown up. It starts when they're young. So just like we have people who go and give students pep talks, and some who bore students to death with long, lengthy lectures, which lose the students after the first 2 minutes, okay? Is it possible then? I always ask this question. How do you ensure that our education system caters for all manner of possibilities? There's a time when it was considered a mortal sin if your child wanted to study music. What?
Acting.
What? No. Study something serious. And they would give you a list of the serious things.
Yes.
And yet, the truth of the matter is, not everyone is gifted in those serious things. And it's just a fact of life.
Somebody is unserious.
Yes.
And
in fact, diversity is the most unserious thing we have, but it's also the most realistic reality that we have, diversity.
But isn't there a place that is being created as we go along for therapeutic practice of just being able to take your mind away from the hot and heavy on a regular? And as a necessity to say that there needs to be a place. It doesn't matter the kind of society in which you find yourself, that there needs to be a place that you can run to laugh, to breathe out. There is a news service in certain parts of Europe called Relax News. And all they focus on is the entertaining, the softer side. So away from all the, the politics and policy and heavy stuff, that you can, in your whole day, as you're consuming all of this heavy stuff, you can then consume the lighter things, a place where you can just breathe. So hasn't it been that...
So it's a whole bulletin of bullseye.
Well, okay, sure.
Perhaps even funnier than Bullseye.
I think, that's what it is. It's the crazy stories from around the world. It's the stuff that you can actually take a moment to laugh out.
Actually,
so I'm thinking, isn't it as a thing of necessity now that you need that place where your mind can go with all the heaviness that comes?
It's happened in this country at a time when one of our former presidents, during the Moi era, which many like to refer to as a very draconian time, there was a group that introduced this form of entertainment. They're called Ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And the person they parodied the most was actually the president.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I looked at the effect of that. The president seemed to embrace it. It's like he seemed to find it funny himself.
Yeah.
Now,
maybe he needed a moment of therapy
yes.
too.
So when something, and remember, this was an era where we had strong men. The entire continent had strong men. You dare make fun of a president?
Surely.
These people were making fun of the president. And they made fun of many other situations.
Yes.
What am I saying? The very thing that you're saying you see, we saw it here. It softened very many things. Just that humor.
True. I mean,
the ability to laugh at things.
Yeah.
At first you hear it, you say, okay, this one, somebody wants me to take a one-way trip to jail.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not laughing at this funny thing.
There's nothing funny here.
Yes.
But maybe there's actually a space for it. Even when you talk about governments introducing ministries of happiness, this is it. Some therapy of some sorts.
For sure.
Where you go into this theater, it's stand-up comedians who are there, whatever. It's a moment for you to laugh at the situation that you're in.
Yes.
And you just find something funny about it.
And it provides something.
We've been locked up. Can you come up with jokes around the situation?
When one talks about enrollment for new courses in institutions of higher learning right across the world, in some of the better-known universities, some of the courses that get the largest applications are studies in that. Yes. People want to understand how they can be at peace. Okay?
Yeah.
It's more important than anything else. They want to understand how they can enjoy life. And that is what they want to study.
It's true.
Yes. So at the end of the... Remember, when you're talking about the western part of the world, these material things that we clamor for and hanker for, they can almost take it for granted. So they want other things.
Indeed. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Keep it right here. In the next hour, we talk about ODM and the meeting that was held yesterday with the party leader. We'll be speaking with the Secretary General. Good morning. It's 8 o'clock.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
So 3 kangaroos have been knocked down along Langata Road just before Bomas. Please approach with caution, guys. You need to be careful about that as you approach Langata Road this morning, and watch out for that. It's going to cause some heavy traffic there, and look out for that. Okay, on Mombasa Road this morning, it's also quite slow as you're coming from Cabanas. That trailer situation has been sorted out, and so it's moving, but now we're dealing with the leftovers of that. Looking pretty good on Thika Road coming out into the CBD. Traffic is not too terrible there. It's going to be this way on Mombasa Road today throughout most of today, so please watch out for that. Okay, talk to us should you need to. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text on 40127.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation
2
Room.
minutes after 8.
The
This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Wow, what's happening on Langata Road? That's some huge traffic snarl.
Yeah, 3 kangaroos unfortunately have been knocked down on Mombasa Road, on Langata Road, right around the Bomas Junction, and so that's causing some traffic this morning.
KWS there?
We hope so soon.
Okay. Someone should alert the KWS. Okay. That's a big one that's happening this morning. Indeed. Thank you very much for keeping it right here on SpiceFM. We're on to the third hour of the show. It's 2 minutes after 8. In the room this morning is Siti Muga Nduoko and Eric Latif. Shortly, we'll be having a conversation with Edwin Sifuna. He is the Secretary General of the Orange Democratic Movement Party. Yesterday, the leadership of ODM had a meeting, and among those that were present were Senator James Orengo, Raila spokesman Dennis Onyango, ODM Secretary General Sifuna, Party Treasurer Timothy Bosire, Homa Bay Woman Rep Gladys Wanga, ODM Chairman John Badi, and Minority Whip in the National Assembly Junaid Mohammed. They discussed a number of things. One, they affirmed their commitment to the Uhuru-Raila Handshake Pact. Number two, ODM support for BBI and the Amendment Bill 2020 remains steadfast. Number three, the party wants the House to fast-track debate and release of the BBI bill to the public. Which House? The one that has gone on recess? Number four, maintains that BBI must be subjected to a referendum to give Kenyans a say. This comes hot on the heels of what was reported yesterday with regards to what one of the two deputy party leaders of ODM, Wycliffe Oparanya, the governor of Kakamega County, had talked about, the referendum. We were saying, all right, so we're still on that path for a constitutional amendment, but maybe we don't have to hold a referendum this year. Maybe we can hold a referendum. If you hold a referendum this year and then you have an election next year, that's spending so much resources into this particular project. Stories, what's the headline in the Star this morning?
Raila's first step in race for presidency.
That is the Standard.
Yes. In the Star, handshake, Uhuru call that settled Raila fears.
Uhuru call that settled Raila's fears.
Uhuru's call, the call that Uhuru made, and the call which, having been made, settled Raila's fears.
This sounds like a headline that we saw 2 weeks ago.
Yes, it is. It sounds exactly, almost word for word.
It's like Uhuru has a lot of work. Every time there's something, he has to call Raila. Wait, boss, relax.
That's what is reported. Did he really call? That's what's reported.
Yes.
Every time something of this. Because, we actually can't call the president and ask him, sir.
Did you
call?
Did you or ask Raila, excuse me, sir, did you receive a call from the... so it having been said, now you figure out whether it actually happened or it didn't happen.
Right. Before we speak to Sifuna, today's proverb.
Yes, before we speak to Sifuna, today's proverb. The fate that befalls the lowly will befall the leader.
The fate that befalls the lowly will befall the leader. All right. Edwin Sifuna, good morning.
Good morning. How are you, Eric?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, and my friends Lou and City.
Good morning, Edwin. How are you doing?
We are very well, thank you, sir.
I'm doing well. What do you guys call yourself? We need like a name. I know the others call themselves a gang.
It's a situation room.
Okay, when one makes a statement similar to the one you've just made, usually they have an idea. What do you think we should be called?
I have no idea. I've never thought about it.
Okay. By the way, you looked nice in that yellow T-shirt. I always see you in a suit.
Yeah, I was dressed for a COVID jab, but unfortunately, when I went to get it, they said that they were out.
Oh, no.
Oh, dear.
Where was this?
Yeah, so at the pharmacy and the Poisons Road.
Okay.
Yeah, and they said they didn't have any of those vaccines.
No, you do this. The whole of this week and next week, just keep wearing a T-shirt.
Are you speaking for yourself, or
you may come across
a jab
somewhere. Be ready for any eventuality.
Asante.
So this meeting that was held yesterday,
yes.
that affirmed a number of things for ODM with regards to BBI, with regards to the handshake. Why was it important that you reaffirm?
Well, I think it is because there's been a lot of discussion in the public space about the party's position on BBI and the referendum. You yourselves have alluded to statements that were made by members of the party, including myself, and the deputy party leader, Honorable Paranya, that in some quarters, was interpreted to mean that there were doubts or that the party was backing out of the BBI project. So it needs to be understood that the party has never gagged us as the leadership to express views on things the way that we see them. But that the way political parties work is that party positions are arrived at after meetings such as the ones that we held yesterday. And that in the absence of a specific party position after a meeting such as the one yesterday, people are free to express themselves on how they see things.
Okay. So in yesterday's meeting, for example, did you get to express yourself and say why you are thinking the way you are thinking with regards to referendum and
of course,
resource
and
allocation?
I want to draw on the proverb that City has given us, that the fate that befalls the lowly will befall the leader. Right now, honestly speaking, I don't think COVID is sparing anyone. If you are a leader or the lowly, you will die if you joke around. And if we don't prioritize getting our people vaccinated, there will be no one to build roads or to do the Big Four agenda or indeed even the BBI agenda. So I don't think that there is anything wrong in saying that just like everybody is doing around the world, we need to get our people vaccinated as a first priority.
When you say you need to get our people vaccinated as a first priority, Edwin, I assume that it was already a priority. And I assume that the priority, like most things which are new, is just taking a bit of time for the Ministry of Health to get their act together.
That doesn't mean that we can't reiterate the matter or just to kutilia mkazo.
No. In fact, I agree with you. I agree with you completely, Edwin. I agree with you completely. In fact, even as they go about pottering about what it is that they're doing, I think, yes, a little heat must be turned up. I agree with you completely. But let me tell you where I was going with this.
Yeah.
As a party, when we look at what is happening and the decisions that are being made, do you feel that the decisions the government is making with the lockdown are the best decisions they could make?
I think, these decisions are science-driven and they are data-driven. The government has information that, in fact, the third wave is more lethal than the first two waves. You can see the casualties yourself. Every day we are losing people, including yesterday when we lost a member of parliament. And then you have to make the decision as the leader of the country. What do you do? The only criticism that we leveled against him is that we would have loved to see the same protections that were woven into the measures when we had the first wave, woven into the third wave as well. Because if you lock down the counties of Nairobi and what they're calling the disease-infected area, you lock down the bars and the restaurants. The entertainment industry is basically on its knees. You saw the members of that industry yesterday protesting. So all we are saying is that there should have been accompanying measures to cushion members of the public from the ravages, especially the economic ravages of the lockdown. This includes reviewing the price of fuel, returning the VAT to a lower amount like we saw in the first wave, looking at payee brackets, the tax that is levied on people who are still in employment, to the few that are lucky to be still in employment, and so on and so forth. So those protectionist measures is what we are saying. With the return of the lockdown, we should have seen a return to those protectionist measures. And I know that these measures were lifted just in December, and I've seen people saying, members of your party were quiet in parliament during that time. As I've said, and I want to reiterate, these decisions are based on available data. So this is not December 2020. This is March 2021, April actually. So we have different data. We have seen the numbers. We have seen the reasons that the government has advanced. So whereas they might be justified in the lockdown, let them also look at reviewing the protectionist measures.
Edwin, perception is so vital, especially when it comes to politics in this country. And with these recent announcements, it would seem as though there's a fresh face look of the party, and it's really caring about, the livelihoods or the welfare of the people that was not there before. What would you have to say about that? Because, we had this conversation a couple of days ago and everybody was like, hold on a minute. Is it the same ODM that we've been talking about? So now, really concerned about the livelihoods and the welfare of Kenyans, until you can even say, push BBI to the back burner for now. Let's deal with taking care of the country. Has that always been the case?
I will give you another proverb. They say a leopard never changes its spots. I don't think it is fair for you to say that suddenly ODM has become the party that cares about people. We have always been that party as a social democratic party. We have always been the party that front-loaded the welfare of the people. And I want to see evidence that we changed at any one point. Because this is something that has been thrown around. It's some of the propaganda that has been directed at us as a party that somehow we abdicated our role as the opposition. But there is no evidence of that. At every turn, the party has always raised its voice at things that we believe that should be done differently. Yeah.
Including talking about not holding political rallies so that people can be protected, including talking about the best way to advance the BBI agenda is having conversations without necessarily having those big rallies where the super spreader rallies. That's what you're talking about, right?
Those rallies aren't big, Eric. They are mammoth.
Eric. It is difficult, Eric, for you to draw that conclusion that in fact these political rallies are super spreader events. I have said that when it comes to diseases and especially pandemics, you have to make pronouncements based on data. So the question I want to ask you is that we had by-elections in Kabuchai, we had by-elections in Matungu.
Yes.
Why is it that Kabuchai and Matungu are not on lockdown and it's Nairobi that is in lockdown? When was the last time we had a political rally in Nairobi? I mean, let's not just say things because, I know that the public generally is not... does not look at politicians favorably. But really, let's make decisions and pronouncements based on data. I would like to see the data that the rallies that I held in Matungu, for instance, have resulted in X number of infections. There is no correlation between.
Actually, there is. The truth of the matter is. Actually, there is. It's never immediate.
Show me the data.
It's never.
If you look
immediate.
at the Camry report that was projecting we're going to have a peak of COVID-19 infections in March, it quoted a number of things. Number one, it talked about the kind of movement that was witnessed during the Christmas festivities. Number two, the reopening
which
of schools.
Which was blamed on politicians?
No, let me finish. Number two, the reopening of schools. Number three, increased political activity. That's what the experts said.
So where's the data? That's what I'm asking you.
We would the report. Go to the Camry website.
You can't send me to a website when you are the ones who have brought up the issue.
But Edwin, he's quoting a credible source, and it's called Kenya Medical Research Institute. And he's talking about the report.
He has the report, right? Or he has seen it. So what is the data in Matungu? How many people have been infected?
No, Matungu is recent. Matungu is recent, and it falls under the category of political activities.
Yeah, that's
Edwin,
what I'm telling you.
You're arguing like saying, show me how much rain fell here because the Mau is active. Show me because we have X number of trees in Mau.
I think even with Mau, there was data.
That's the kind of argument that you're making.
There was data.
Scientists all over. The reason why there's a lockdown is to reduce. That is the logic that's been given. So a political rally where people are in close quarters is obviously encouraging human interaction. So it's obvious that there's going to be a higher infection.
I agree with you, but what I'm protesting is the disproportionate focus on politicians, because human interaction is not only at political rallies. There's a lot of human interaction, and all I'm saying is, for you to blame politicians to the extent that you want to blame, you have to show us data. Yeah.
Actually, Eric isn't even blaming them sufficiently. Let me add a little fuel to the fire so that we actually understand the extent to which I want to take the blame. You see, the unfortunate situation that we find ourselves in this country is that we follow the examples that are before us and led by politicians. It's unfortunate. When politicians make pronouncements, most people take them as the truth. So if you lead by example and you are part and parcel of a gathering, people then take it that gatherings are fine. You want data? Look at Brazil, all right? Look at the US. You want data? Look at Europe during the summer and what happened when people thronged their beaches and gathered and did all sorts of things. The experts will tell you, and they even told you, after such a period, there will be a spike. And there was. And what followed were lockdowns. Brazil, it isn't lockdowns. What they have is massive deaths. The month of March, 60 people died.
60,000 people.
60,000, not 6. So all I'm saying is, there is a lot of information on these things, and we are simply saying that the power of example that is vested in our politicians is something that must be understood. And anything that they do will be taken not just with a pinch of salt, but as the example that people must follow. And so the consequences that arise from it, unfortunately, Edwin, I have to park it at your doorstep.
Yeah, you're misunderstanding my protest. All I am saying is that there is disproportionate focus or attention on politicians. And I will give you the best example. We have to call out hypocrisy. There's a famous clip I saw about, I think it was a pastor from Pefa Church or something like that. He was protesting the closure of churches, and in the same breath, in fact, within minutes of protesting the closure, he went straight to blaming Raila Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta. Yeah, and then you ask yourself, what is the difference between the interaction in church and the interactions in political rallies? If I change the person speaking at the pulpit, instead of the pastor, it is Edwin Sifuna, does COVID spread faster? So that is what I'm saying. We recognize as leaders that we have a responsibility to lead the way, and you have seen our 100% compliance with the lockdowns. The question I'm asking you is, Nairobi is under lockdown. How many rallies were held to force the government to lock down Nairobi, for instance, and why not Matungu, why not Kabuchai?
Actually,
so all I'm saying is that there is something we call cause and effect in law. If you blame something from a certain happening, you have to demonstrate the causal link between the event and the act of the person that you are blaming. But I don't dispute that science is there, that human interaction is how this thing spreads, and that we should limit it as far as possible. And that's what we are doing even as a political class.
And also remember, Nairobi is a hub for many things, okay? I was corrected yesterday by one Mr. Hirsi, and he told me that the continental hub is now Addis and not Nairobi. But for the longest time, Nairobi has been a travel hub for not just the continent, but for even the rest of the world, for people who come in this region. Now, as a country, it is a meeting and melting point for all other counties. So if you just look at the movement that people have within Nairobi, even if, and let us now remove the political rallies, the movement alone, in the absence of compliance to the COVID rules, would help bring about this situation. It isn't one thing, Edwin. It is many things. And that interaction, and let's give you a little leeway. You are right. You cannot fully blame rallies. Neither can you fully blame politicians. But all we are saying is the influence that politicians have on the ordinary citizen, the citizens of this country, is vast. And that influence...
I agree.
Yes. And that influence, unfortunately, if it is followed by an example, whatever that example is, then unfortunately the consequences and the blame that will follow has to land somewhere. And this is really what we're saying.
I agree. We are doing our best in terms of complying, and from my perspective, sometimes it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. Yesterday, somebody was asking me why Governor Oparanya and Joe were not in our meeting. And if I flew them into town, it would be noise that, these people are not complying.
You're flouting the rules.
I'm wondering, there's a friend of ours from One Kenya Alliance who was pictured flying to some place.
Some ranch.
He received some ranch for lunch.
Edwin, I want to ask you a question now as a lawyer.
Yes.
What the Constitution and the laws talk about when it comes to a citizen-led push to amend the Constitution, the stage that we are at right now, is a referendum a done deal? Like, we must have a referendum, number one, and number two, are there timelines by which we must have this referendum?
Yeah, I think from a legal perspective, it is clear in my mind that we must have a referendum, and this is dictated by the Constitution itself. It is the Constitution that sets out matters that without a referendum you can't amend a constitution. A quick example is if you have an amendment on the Bill of Rights, if you change the role of Parliament or touch on the structure and principles of devolution, it says as of essence you must take that document to the referendum. And another thing that I want to make clear is that it doesn't matter how many provisions a bill has, for as long as there is a single provision that touches on any of those matters that I've given as an example, you must take the entire bill to the referendum. So reading through the proposed amendments in the constitutional amendment bill that is presently before Parliament, I know that there are amendments touching on the Bill of Rights. We have a provision on data protection. We have amendments on the structure and principles of devolution in terms of how it is financed, and so on and so forth. So for as long as those provisions remain in the bill, and I know that they remain in the bill, we will have a referendum, and we must have a referendum to effect those changes.
Okay. Second part of the question, timelines? Must
it
happen
so
within a certain time?
No, I think the timelines that are provided are for the periods that are specified for the assemblies to deal with the matter. So we have the 3 months that the county assemblies are given as a maximum, within which they must deal with the bill, and then probably the same at the National Assembly and the Senate. But other than that, there are no other timelines that I know of.
So the referendum can even happen next year or in 2024?
Then they become extra legal considerations because this referendum is not just a purely legal push. There are political ramifications and things that people are looking to achieve politically before the next general election that now determines when we should schedule this referendum. For instance, if you speak to majority of the women in this country, they will tell you that they would prefer a situation where we go into the election with the 2/3 gender rule having been sorted out, especially knowing that we are in a very precarious situation where the Chief Justice has already advised dissolution of Parliament because of non-compliance with the 2/3 gender rule, so that this is not a matter that can wait any longer. So that is why many of us prefer that this matter be sorted out prior to the next election.
All right, it's 24 minutes to past 8 a.m. Edwin, let's have you again on this show so we can extend the conversation about ODM, your preparations for the next general election. Now we see that you already have a number of people who are expressing their willingness to seek the party's nomination for the presidential ticket. Many other things, eh?
I am surprised that you people have focused on the pandemic more than what you are seeing in the headlines. I don't know what amount of restraint that took, but I want to congratulate you.
Kenyans are suffering, Edwin.
Things are thick. COVID is the pandemic. Election is not.
But just one thing I can say is that today is April Fool's. So you must read some of these stories in the papers with a lot of caution.
Yeah.
So you yourselves alluded to one of the headlines there that is actually regurgitated from 2 weeks ago. It cannot be that every time there is a discussion around matters in politics that phone calls have to be made. I mean, it is becoming ridiculous for some of these papers to be carrying such headlines. And I can guarantee you, this is a joke. I think I can hazard a guess that the entire paper is a joke.
Wow.
That's a strong one.
For today, eh?
For today, it's April Fool.
Okay. That's a good guess. Thank you very much for speaking to us, Edwin. Have a lovely day. 25 minutes after 8. Kenya's biggest conversation continues shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
There are so many people peddling what is false and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. They gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog,
he's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort. Nafandi umbo yako iko na
nini umba special.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
All right, so still looking at partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi, light rain in some parts of the city. It'll go to highs of 26 today and lows of 17. Still continues to rain in Nyeri, 17. highs of 23 and lows of 15. It's snowing in Nakuru at 17, highs of 27 and lows of 15. Mostly cloudy conditions in Eldoret at 15, highs of 25 and lows of 12. It's mostly sunny in Kisumu at 22, highs of 28 and lows of 20. The sun is shining in Kakamega, highs of 29 and lows of 17. Rain showers in Mombasa, 32 the high and lows of 26. Lows of 27 and rain showers in Malindi, highs of 32 today. It's still raining in Kampala, highs of 26 and lows of 19. Dar es Salaam, we'll see highs of 30 today and lows of 25. Light rain going to continue through most parts of the morning. It's sunny in Johannesburg at 15. We'll see highs of 24 and lows of 12. And rain showers continue in Lagos, going to highs of 33 and lows of 26. And mostly cloudy conditions in Kinshasa. We'll see highs of 31 and lows of 23.
Spice up your life.
Okay, so folks are still trying to control that kangaroo situation on Langata Road today, right at the junction of Bomas, where 3 have fallen, unfortunately, been knocked down. So that is still being looked at, causing some traffic along the way. Mombasa Road is still locked in some places. We're looking at Syokimau through to Cabanas and then out towards General Motors. Quite slow today. Let's keep an eye on that. Inbound as well, some traffic, and folks have to use Enterprise Road out into the city. Other than that, I don't think we have too much in terms of traffic. Coming off of Thika Road is looking all right. Jogo Road slow towards Landis. Industrial area, some parts. Lunga Likoni, that has still not been finished, guys. It's still going to take some time before we can get smooth traffic in that area. We'll keep looking. So Ngong Road looks good to the city stadium, rather Steam Mortuary roundabouts, then out towards Valley Road. Into the city looks fine. SpiceFM KE through the morning on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Spice FM. Spice up your life.
Twenty-nine after 8. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, broadcasting from Nairobi to around the country, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi. We are also broadcasting to the world on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We are on KTN Home, and we are live streaming the show. SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook. I said that.
You did.
And www.spicefm.co.ke. So, we are waiting to hear from the Judicial Service Commission because there are candidates that have applied following the advertisement by the Judicial Service Commission for a position of Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya and a position to fill the vacancy in the Supreme Court. A number of candidates applied. Some applied for both positions. Some applied for one. You know where my crystal ball tells me who's going to be our next Chief Justice, but that's not what we're going to discuss today. Let's talk about the number of candidates who've applied for the position of Chief Justice and position of a Judge of the Supreme Court of Kenya, and the number of female candidates that we've seen this time. Somebody who's really, really been keen on the issue of gender and gender inclusivity, especially the issue of women in positions of leadership, leads a campaign called We Are 52%. She's a lawyer, she's a feminist, she's a policy analyst, she's a writer. She joins us on the line. She's Marilyn Kamuru. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you for having me.
Marilyn, let's just start off by asking, what is We Are 52%?
So you said I lead it. Actually, I don't. We Are 52% is a feminist collective, and we've been advocating around equality, inclusion, and representation of women and marginalized groups. And we've been doing this. We did this around the dissolution of parliament campaign to ensure parliament was compliant with the 2/3 gender rule and multiple court orders. We've done this around appointments, rather unsuccessfully. But really, it's a campaign that's about making sure that women, young women especially, remain politically active and are not pushed to the margins, and that we continue to insist that leadership in this country and representation needs to reflect the country, needs to reflect the demographics of this country, which includes, a population that's almost 50% women, actually more than 50% really, and young people. And we continue to see a leadership that is very far removed from that.
Marilyn, when you use the word feminist, what do you mean by it?
Well, what I mean by feminist, I'm an African feminist, and I think there are lots of African feminisms, and this can be an intellectual conversation sometimes. But what I mean by feminist is that women are people, that women are not appendages of men. We are not other. There's a centrality, especially as a lawyer, there's a centrality to men in law that makes it very difficult for the law to see women as equal partners. Indeed, in 2010, for the first time in our history, the Constitution recognized women as equal citizens. That's a very recent development. And so for me, feminism, and my feminism in particular, is about the practice of reaching a socially just society, one which does not privilege men, as has historically been the case.
I am actually thinking about what you've said. Doesn't privilege. So you're coming from the position that women have historically been underprivileged, and their actual position and role and being within the society of human beings has never been acknowledged and treated with the equality it deserves. Have I got it right?
Not really, actually, because I'm coming from the position that patriarchy as a system has privileged men. And there's a way in which a lot of feminists will choose to approach it the way you have. So you're not wrong. But I choose to approach it from looking at male privilege. And the reason that that's important, especially in the discussion we're having today, is, for instance, the provisions of our Constitution, which deal with not more than 2/3. And so that provision is actually focused not on a minimum inclusionary principle, but on a limitation on the dominance of a majority, right? So essentially what our provision on gender provides is that no gender should have a supermajority in bodies. And so it's concerned about dominance. And I think that goes back to the sharing of power principle, devolution. We as a nation were very concerned about concentration of power and dominance by certain groups. And so that cuts across the entire Constitution. And that's one of the things that I think is often lost when we talk about, women's representation. We're not talking about tokenism. We're talking about making sure that our systems and our bodies more and more reflect our society.
Marilyn, the debates are loud, and they've gotten louder and louder over time, especially because then audience has been given to this debate and this conversation. And we start to see a little bit of movement here and there, whether it's on corporate boards and then a little bit in terms of government and elections and things like that. Many would also argue that there's still a very long way to go in terms of this, and I think that there is. Do we see a shift in this conversation because people are starting to have an innate understanding of why it's important to include women? Or are people reacting to the noise and saying, we don't want to hear this anymore, let us just act so that we can dull the noise down a little bit?
Yeah, that's actually very prescient, though. But I think it's both. I think you've hit it on the head. It's both. We are making progress. No doubt we're making progress. The Constitution is evidence of the progress, right? We're definitely making progress, but there's also a backlash. There's also a reaction. And a lot of that reaction is driven by people who are vested in the status quo. I like to remind people that one of the things that the gender principle does is that it integrates the political elite in a way that they were not comfortable with, because it forces them to seek allies in areas that they never sought allies, right? Suddenly you find that, and it's not just the gender principle, even regional representation. So when we talk about, for instance, the Supreme Court has tended to be an institution that is dominated by men, including illegally since 2010. Actually, since 2010, we've never had a constitutionally compliant Supreme Court. That's appalling, you know. And so while we're making progress in the legal provisions, we continue to have public bodies, in this case the JSC, that are resistant to actually respecting and upholding the law. And it's having a ripple effect in society. I think what we see is that, I think the speaker provided a public advisory after CJ Maraga issued his advisory to the president on the dissolution of parliament in September of 2020. And the speaker in response basically said, why is everybody focusing on parliament? The Supreme Court is unconstitutional. The national cabinet is unconstitutional. Why are you all focusing on parliament? So part of what these unconstitutional bodies have done is create the culture of impunity and make it more difficult for any of these bodies to hold each other accountable. And that's why it is incredibly important that as the JSC engages in this recruitment, they ensure we have a compliance court.
Okay.
They make sure that we cannot have more than 4 members of either gender. We cannot have 5 men on this court. We certainly can't have them fill both of these vacancies with men. Indeed, legally, only one of these vacancies can be filled by a man.
So if we look at it that way now, we're coming to the composition of the Supreme Court and also the next appointment of the Chief Justice. So what you've said is we have a vacancy in the Supreme Court. Right now, out of the 7 judges that have been there, only 2 have been women. And if we were to look at the balance and the constitutional requirement, how many should be women at a minimum?
Okay, so I'm gonna push you guys on this, and I want to push you on this because legally this is the law. It is not how many minimum; it is how many maximum. What's the cap? The cap of any gender is 4 because there are 7.
Okay.
So there can be no more than 4 of the majority gender. There are currently 3 men on the court, which means there's only 1 available position for a man on the court. If there was more than that, then they're in violation of the provisions of the Constitution and a recent case, Petition 566 of 2015.
Okay. Now we have some women who have applied for position of Chief Justice and some have applied for both the vacant position as well in the Supreme Court. So it would also not be good to have both positions filled by women.
No, that would be fine.
Or we'd have 4.
We'd have 4.
Okay.
Yes, and it's important to start to challenge this. It's become almost a de facto rule that men must be the majority in bodies, and that's something that we should challenge. And if the women are qualified, and in this case we have some of the most qualified women, absolutely they could be 4.
So here's my other question. I understand both of them can be filled by women, but can they really? When we have the Deputy Chief Justice being a woman, can we also have a Chief Justice who's a woman?
Absolutely. There is no legal bar. And I will remind you, the President and Deputy President are not of alternate genders. And while this has been something that has been proposed a lot, especially by the political elite, when women are insisting on greater representation, it has the potential to essentially create women as a category, right? So we are always deputizing men. In this case, for instance, one of the applicants for CJ is a world-renowned international expert in areas from land to environment to gender. She sat on the Committee of Eminent Persons and really has a really renowned reputation, former Dean of Nairobi Law School, a builder of institutions. So when you have that kind of caliber of candidates, to then go back to these traditions that are nowhere in law is really a testament to our fear of excellence, I think. Why are we so afraid of merit?
If I hear you correctly, what you seem to be pushing for when you call it equal representation is affirmative action.
Yes. And that's affirmative action is also the language that's used in the Constitution, yes.
Yes. So affirmative action simply means that by virtue of desiring this balance, then it must be done. Women must be in positions of representation up to a certain quota. Is that it?
Exactly. That it is not up to the public bodies to decide by themselves. That in addition to the qualifications, one of the qualifications is actually gender representation. Exactly. You got it, CT.
On that, Marilyn, the thing is, and I think that maybe a little bit of a deeper understanding needs to happen here, because a lot of people then would ask the question that, okay, so essentially what we're doing is that we are forcing the selection of women, quote unquote forcing. And can that be explained by saying that being left to selection, the selection would not be a woman, for example, because of, certain traditional practices, whatever has been the case over time, that the first selection would not be a woman. The first selection would not be a woman. And so what you're saying by affirmative action is that you're saying put a woman in that position and then see what would happen, because you're not likely to make that selection on your own.
No, I think we need to be careful about two things. First of all, that debate is done, right? So affirmative action is in the Constitution.
Yes, but you've also said things that are in the Constitution are not practiced to date, right?
But I think that what I'm suggesting is we make them optional when we have these discussions like this, right? So we don't have discussions about, is it okay then if I just shoot my neighbor because he's constantly having parties at 3 a.m. in the morning? We don't discuss that. Why? It's illegal. We don't create a forum that allows people to have an alternative view when something has been deemed illegal. And I think the challenge, especially with affirmative action and gender representation, is that we have created a forum for people to debate the law, to basically create the context in which they justify their violation of the law, right? That's exactly what the speaker was saying when he was saying, why do I have to comply? Why does Parliament have to comply? Supreme Court is unconstitutional, Cabinet is unconstitutional. While Parliament is the body itself that approved the President's nominees for Cabinet. So what this unconstitutionality does is perpetrates unconstitutionality. An unconstitutional body is going to endorse another unconstitutional body, is going to step back from accountability with another unconstitutional body. So I think what is incredibly important for those of us who have platforms, for those of you in media, is to hold people accountable to, listen, we're not negotiating the law unless you're proposing an amendment to the law. But until that time, we need to follow the law. JSC legally cannot do anything other than recruit in compliance with the Constitution.
You put across your case beautifully. Now, let me introduce a certain concept that often creeps into this discussion. It's called reality, okay?
I live in the real world,
Oh, I have no doubt that you do. You see, in situations where, for instance, you're talking about appointments and you're talking about balancing the odds, I see it clearly. But when you bring it to the political sphere where you are now introducing the concept of an election, okay?
Right.
What then do you do? Do you ensure that political parties have to guarantee that their representation when it comes to people who are presented for elections have that balance? Do you change the law so that instead of having a presidential system, we have a parliamentary system, and we ensure that political parties, by law, must have that representation? What do we do?
Well, I think we've tried a variety of things, and we're going to keep doing a variety of things. I'm very cognizant, CT, and I think it is a very valid point, that law doesn't create the society in which we live. In many ways, law is aspirational, right? It's saying this is a society we want to live in. But I think for me, one of the things that we really must be concerned with as Kenyans is, where are we going? What's the direction, right? And when the direction is contrary to where we have said we want to go as a country, then part of what we have to do is say, what are the tools available to us to pull people back, right? Some of those are law. Others are creating the social context, the environment. This is what we're doing with this conversation, where we are basically saying, you know what? First of all, we see the illegality that's happening, and it's not okay. We're not condoning it. We're not going to be silent about it. And it can be powerless at times. It can be extremely frustrating. I was a lead petitioner in the case that challenged the constitutionality of cabinet. We won that case, and the president went ahead to nominate another unconstitutional parliament with the assistance of parliament. It is incredibly frustrating. but we must continue. We will make progress because we don't acquiesce. And so not having all of the solutions does not prevent us from trying.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But then there's something else that also creeps into a certain aspect of reality that creeps into this discussion. You see, with gender parity, as we're now talking about it, brings in the reality of the respect that comes with it. You see, when you talk about a level playing field, if I may use that term, there are other issues that also come into the discussion. That is, for instance, how then do you consider that there is parity when one part of your society expects things to be given? I'm talking perception here, and the other one thinks that they should earn it. Let me explain what I mean. Gender parity, unfortunately, cannot be a discussion that is unburdened by the norms that we have lived by for the longest time and the contributions that we made to these norms by both genders. For instance, when we talk about the perception of the role of women and the role of men, the contribution to what you've called the patriarchal, the generosity of the dominance, the role of women has often been mentioned as being a very huge contributory factor to this, as in the mothers and the way they treat their sons, and the mothers and the way in which they treat their daughters. Yes, exactly. These are the realities of the discussion. And if we are talking about this and we are seeking to understand it, I would ask you and people who are championing this, how far do you take this discussion? Now, this is my favorite point. In our educational system, so that these are discussions and realities that young people encounter right from their primary to secondary school. So it isn't a discussion that hits you in the face when you're an adult, but it's something that you encounter at an early age and you begin to interact with. How far do you take these discussions, and how far do you ensure that these things are entrenched in the communities and society that we live in?
I know we live in a radically different world that I grew up in, right? So I know these discussions are already happening, and some of them are not discussions. Some of them are just the way we experience the world, right? When I was growing up and I wanted to be a lawyer, there weren't that many female lawyers. So I saw Martha Karua, I saw Martha Koome, one of the women who is a candidate for, both the Chief Justice and the Supreme Court judgeship. I saw these women and I was, fascinated by them, But now a young girl sees so many lawyers that it's probably not even impressive for her anymore. So the world is changing, and there are the discussions, the formal discussions we have. We continue to have them. My sons and I are constantly debating at the table, talking about, representation. It's difficult not to when your mom does this work, but we talk about what does that mean for them as well. And we talk about what patriarchal privilege means and why that is important, and why I want to keep returning to that is because that's what creates what men say they have earned is actually what they feel entitled to, which is why there is no question when there is a man as president and a man as deputy president. But suddenly there's an uproar if there's the possibility of a woman chief justice and a female deputy chief justice, even though some of the most exemplary candidates for the position of chief justice are women, right? So when I say that privilege, I'm not saying it in a way that says, you're sitting there and hoarding things. I'm talking about centuries of expectations that do take a while. And we have to gently sometimes tell people, hey, just so you know, what you are thinking is abnormal is actually not.
Let's look at the Chief Justice selection now, and even now members to the Supreme Court. Do you think that these selections are under threat still of this norm that we've seen for centuries? Do you think that it's under threat today as we see it?
Absolutely. I mean, we're seeing that. We're seeing narratives around, we're seeing, last minute desperate attempts to besmirch character of, one of the candidates who's a Court of Appeal judge. None of these people have made complaints before, which they could have since she was a Court of Appeal judge. Another candidate who has an exemplary record. And so we start to see these last-minute attempts, these last-ditch attempts, and they're about making the path easier for some of the less qualified candidates.
And do you think these things are coming about as a result of their being female? Do you think these last-minute attempts come as a result of
it
that?
is gender, and I think some of it is there is a deeply entrenched misogyny, but I think also some of it is really just political interest. And I think that's what should concern us more as Kenyans, is that when people want weaker candidates, by definition, what they are looking for is weaker systems. They're looking for systems that are less inclined to serve public interest, more inclined to serve political interest. So as Kenyans, even if you don't care about gender representation, and I would urge you to care, because it's not going to be possible for us to develop as a society without having more of each gender involved, even if you don't care about that, you should care that we select the best quality candidates.
Marilyn, what efforts do you and people who... Please, finish what you're saying, then I will ask you my question, please.
I think one of the things that we're doing, which is very, very dangerous, is we're creating an environment where public service is being left by people with excellence, people who have integrity, who have unblemished records, because of the way recruitment processes are being managed. So what we're doing is actually people are choosing not to engage in these processes. And by doing that, we're leaving this space to people, some of whom do not have integrity questions, but are certainly weaker candidates and not the caliber of Kenyans that we're producing in other areas. CT, I'm sorry.
Oh, no. It's how you should apologize. The point you're making is a valid one, but think about it for a second, Marilyn. Huh? We have decision-making bodies like the Judicial Service Commission, very, very important roles. We have Parliament. But so long as the dominant voice, forget the male aspect of it, because it's not just male. The dominant Kenyan perspective and voice is expediency. So what do we sacrifice at this altar of excellence that we are seeking? People who are chosen specifically, and it isn't just in the judicial service. It is in every sphere of public life. You will find that people who end up in positions of authority are probably the worst possible candidates in terms of the bar that had been set by that body. And you wonder, how did this person creep into this position?
But they were the best for other interests.
They were best, thank you very much. They were best for other interests. So the effort, even as we talk about this, should be made in getting people to understand the damage that is actually caused when we actually sell ourselves short when it comes to these things. Because the damage is profound.
CT, you should be on my side. We're saying the same thing. I mean, that is really it.
And why did you think I wasn't on your side, Marilyn?
No, I just mean you should be sitting here next to me. You know? Yes.
Oh, right, okay.
If I'm going out to speak to people, we should be going. I think that why it's important that we're having this conversation as the recruitment is going on is so that we can inject our voices as Kenyans into this process. JSC must understand that the scrutiny we're giving is because we are concerned about the caliber of candidates that get selected. So in the CJ position, they've shortlisted 10. They had 13 applications. To be honest, I think that an equal opportunity approach would have been to shortlist 4, have 2 men and 2 women, right? And that should be the practice going forward, because then what you do is you actually say, we're going to even this playing field. It makes shortlisting harder, but it also creates the context where the shot is fair. Yep. It's a level playing field. But we have 10 now. 7 of them are men. 3 of them are women. We have 5 judges. We have, I think, 2 professors? I think we have 2 professors and 3 legal practitioners, right?
Yep.
So we've got a nice diverse list. But one of the things that for me I find really concerning is that JSC has chosen to shortlist people who have, careers and in legal practice as solo practitioners. They're going to head the 3rd branch of government. You need people who have extensive administrative and managerial experience, and I'm not confident that that's the kind of experience you would have as a solo practice. They haven't told us what they're going to do about practices. I mean, if you're the solo practitioner, that means all those cases, you are institutional memory. How are we going to deal with that? Because, again, there comes a conflict of...
Marilyn, let me just pause you there. I think you're trying to preempt the interview process. That's...
I'm sorry, this entire discussion is preempting the interview process.
Yes.
Because what I'm trying to do is inform the process, right?
Okay.
It's to say, these are the things we need to think about. It's not to say that they're not. It's to say that they need to be on the table, and so far they've not been on the table.
Fair enough.
So I think
Fair
those
enough.
are things that are important.
Fair enough. Marilyn Kamuru, feminist, lawyer, writer, policy analyst, thank you very much for joining us. When the interviews commence, let's have this conversation, right? Let's look at the candidates, what each candidate is saying, and then what we should be looking for, what we should expect of our next Chief Justice and our new member of the Supreme Court of Kenya. Asante sana.
Asanteni.
Thank you very much.
3 minutes to 9. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Thank you very much for tuning in on KTN Home. You can switch now to SpiceFM. 97.7 in Malindi, 90.9 in Nyeri, Eldoret, 96.7, 96.0 in Nakuru, Kisumu 102.5, Mombasa it's 87.9, and Nairobi 94.4.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM. Nyeri.
Okay, so 10 candidates shortlisted for the position of Chief Justice, and a further, how many candidates? 9 candidates shortlisted for position of Supreme Court Judge. All right, of those, 3 are women. So Chief Justice Professor Kameru Mbote, Justice Martha Koome, and Alice Yano have applied for both positions, and they've been shortlisted for the positions. Lady Justice Martha Koome and Miss Alice Yano are also there for the position of Judge of the Supreme Court. It would be interesting actually see the judiciary being led by women. President and Vice President of the Supreme Court, women. Chair and Vice Chair of the Judicial Service Commission, women. Chief Justice and Deputy Chief Justice, women. That would be something.
It would.
Actually, it would be interesting.
Yeah?
It would be interesting because
to be a first.
If you consider just the dominance that men have had, it would, and we know the outcome of that, it would be interesting to see the dominance of women and how that would turn out. It would be interesting.
Let's see. I still hold my candidate for the Chief Justice position, and I hear very much what Marilyn is saying, and I actually agree with her. Yeah. If we can have both men being speakers, being president, being governor, why can't we have a women-led judiciary?
I am actually right in the middle. It's parity. I would rather we find the person who is best suited for that job.
Yes.
Simply.
Oh, best person.
Best suited for that job.
May the best candidate
get
the job.
Yes, let it be a meritocracy.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the moment political
But we
processes
must
are involved,
bring in the gender as well.
The meritocracy will exist, but not what we think is a meritocracy.
Okay.
Yes.
Keep it right here. Good morning. It's 9 a.m.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM. Nairobi.
All right, so still looking
Traffic.
at quite some traffic on Mombasa Road today, in and out bound on Mombasa Road, from really Syokimau all the way through to General Motors. Remember, the road is a lot more narrow because of the construction. So then there's traffic all the way out towards South Sea, the junction there at Bellevue, and then towards the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. That one we can't do anything about. It's just stuck there. It's moving very slowly. Those inbound and you're trying to get round, back going towards the CBD, use Enterprise and then come around on the Likoni Exchange or Likoni Interchange. Best way to go right now. Okay, other parts of the city looking pretty good. Not much coming out of Thika Road. Limuru Road looking good out into the city, and then Wangari Maathai Road option towards Westlands or then out into the city. All right, looking much better. Let's take a look in half an hour and see how this changes towards the end of traffic hour. SpiceFM KE, talk to us on Twitter or text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only
2
way
minutes
to
after
start
9.
your
This
day.
is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Thank you very much for tuning in. We are on to the fourth hour of the show. CT, today's proverb.
Right.
Right.
The fate that befalls the lowly will befall the leader.
Right. Say right.
Right.
Right. The fate that befalls the lowly
Two rights
will
don't make
befall the leader.
Even as we say right, we should actually respond like honest to God Kenyans. Yes.
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 Ni kweli.
Right.
Ni kweli.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yes. So, remember, John, our producer, is giving 10,000. 10,000 to anybody who actually correctly deciphers this particular proverb today.
John, our producer, is giving 10,000 shillings. And it is his own 10,000 shillings. Not somebody else's 10,000 shillings.
Sasa wewe. Why must you insist it's his own?
I should just go with the flow, should I?
Yes, allow things to
and
roll.
just and focus on the 10,000.
It's the 10,000 that matters.
And
10,000 that
not
matters.
the origins of the 10,000.
Where it comes from.
Don't worry your head.
Why am I worried about where it comes from? See, it's 10,000.
Yes.
I mean, it's not as though where it comes from will suddenly increase it or decrease it. It's still 10,000.
Yes.
All right, I rest my case.
Okay.
Case rested.
John, wherever you're getting the money from is not an issue anymore. Yes.
Or who wins is also not an issue.
Well, even more importantly, whether you give it or not.
Okay. Now, we still have to come back to this conversation. Lockdown and the impact of the lockdown on both sides. The impact of the lockdown on slowing down the spread of the virus, the impact of the lockdown on livelihoods and the economy. Yesterday, there was a group of people who were out onto the streets and they were demanding that the president should open up the economy. It's called what? Unlock
the country.
Unlock the country. All right. These are especially people who are in the entertainment industry who have been hard hit by this. Think about it. We were talking to a comedian and he was saying they already had a show lined up for Saturday. They have invested into it. They've done the setup. They have marketed it. People have even bought advance tickets. And then suddenly you've been told indefinite lockdown. So what happens to them? This is where they earn a living. What happens to them? You can imagine people who are in this industry so those are comedians. There will be bands. There will be DJs. There will be people who are service providers in this whole entertainment industry. So what have they been told to do? And what are they going to do about it? So that's why some of them went out onto the streets yesterday and were saying, Mr. President, please unlock our economy. Give us the opportunity to continue earning a living as we observe COVID-19 regulations. We are going to speak with one of them today, and he's a spokesman of that Entertainment and Hospitality Workers Alliance, not Union, Alliance. His name is Kasmul Makure. Kasmul, good morning.
Good morning.
Your second name, boss, just help me to pronounce it.
Makure.
Oh, it's Makure.
Yes.
Okay. Because it has M-C-O-U-R-E.
Yes.
Right. Kasmul Makure, thank you very much for joining us. Yesterday,
Thank
you
you
are
for
among
having
the
me.
people who were out there. And why were you out there?
We were out there because someone had to be there. There's a lot of anger that's going on in Kenya, and we don't know where to direct it. And I remember particularly when I had that famous fellow Kenyan press conference. I was in a hotel at the time, and I was chilling with my waiters friends and my waitress friends, and we were actually just doing an event. It was a wedding, COVID wedding, very few people in attendance. And then now I was walking out to just pick a phone call, and then I saw the address. Remember, these are people who've been out of work for such a long time. We've not played gigs the whole of last year. If we were looking at it collectively, the amount of money earned, for example, by live band over the span of 2020, if you were to average that, it was 20,000 shillings only. And we were just getting our footing back. And then he says, the president says, we locked the country. These are red zones. You can't go in, go out. We can't play our gigs. There are people who lost their gigs immediately that Friday evening. They couldn't play it because they were supposed to leave and go and play in NAS and stuff like that. And we were very angered by it. But now you see, it's not my friend who locked the country down. It's not my fellow pianists who locked the country down. It's not the waiters or the waitresses. So this anger could not be directed to them. As much as, yes, we talk in our small caucuses and cocoons and our small focus groups, we could not continue like that. I felt that this needed to be addressed, and we decided as an alliance to get out there and be heard.
When you say anger, anger is an emotion. It's an expression of an emotion. Why anger? Why not understanding? Why not some other form of emotion that would... Because if you say anger, the question I'm going to ask you is, okay, you are angry, and then? You've expressed it, and then?
Yes.
Do you want something to have an effect, or do you want results? And is anger the best emotion you can engage in this situation to bring about the desired results?
To be very honest, as human beings, I believe we also have an emotional side. There's the economic, the social, political ramifications of those declarations and the directives by government, and they elicit certain emotions in us. And for us to be able to demonstrate peacefully, we need to be... the anger is a very vital part, because no one who's not triggered enough will be able to go to the streets and demonstrate. So as much as, yes, we need to be heard, and we have very clear demands of the government, we will not rule out the anger. We will not assume that we are happy and we're demonstrating just because it's the logical thing to do. It's a scary thing to do. It's a very, it's not a cool thing to go out there and be patronized or beaten by the police. No one is excited for that. And we think about this, and a government that's supposed to be caring for its citizens, the very people who elected it, does not do that. What are we supposed to do? Because we've done all these write-ups, we've signed petitions. 2020 was the year of signing petitions. So we signed those, and we did our best. We masked up, we distanced ourselves socially. So the anger is not the tenor of us going to the streets. It's part of the contributing factors. It's part of what fueled us going there, because you need to be angry enough for you to be able to be bold enough to be on the street. And so the anger is not necessarily what took us there. It's part of what kept us in the streets, because we remember the kids who are going hungry, who have to skip meals, us having to just dress up and go out and look for work. But now we can't even do that because our work solely depends on the gathering together of people. And it's not that we were flaunting those rules. We were doing the most that we could. And then without consultation, we are hit by that. So the anger is a vital part of why we were there.
At the very least, the situation is actually an extremely frustrating one, and I agree with you. And when you look at the horizon and hope doesn't seem to have been provided for, or the discussions around what else to do isn't there, yes, using anger as a tool, yes, very justifiable. But let me ask a different question. The organization that you represent, given that the anger that you're expressing has been expressed, but the reality that brought about the anger is still with us, what are some of the things that you feel and think you should do to ensure that at least your members have some benefit, or at least have a glimmer of hope as they move forward with the pandemic?
Very, very, that's very good. That's a good question. So us hitting the street was not the only strategy we had. We've had a team of lawyers work on drafts and suggestions and papers that we would forward to the ministry. But we've tried that. We've tried channeling our grievances and concerns to the various organizations that represent the various members of the organizations, because we have producers, DJs, musicians, waiters, waitresses, the whole industry. So us going to the street was not the only thing that we want. This was not a publicity stunt. We were going to the street to let people know that we are here and we can't just keep on talking about that. But also at the ground, we have a team that's working, that's telling us this is what we're supposed to do. We've written to the ministry. And even from that from the demonstration we had yesterday, we've already begun seeing results, because the CAS said they're going to have a meeting at 2 to review some of the measures that they had put. So part of the things that we hope to achieve are favorable working conditions for us, and basically one of the things that we really, really agitated for was a clear mandated time frame for the curfew, rather than this vague until further notice situation, with a detailed activity of how they're going to give us mass vaccination and testing. We also wanted the government to suspend or subsidize all the fees in the social elements of life. So we're talking especially healthcare. We were also agitating for a clear food plan for the vulnerable, because our families are affected, because the hospitality sector employs a little over 1.1 million Kenyans, accounting for 9% of the total formal employment in the formal employment sector. So it's very contradictory and self-defeating if we are not allowed to go to work, but international tourists who come into the country are allowed to roam freely in and out of the red zones. So
just hold it there. You just connect the dots for me there. International tourists, members of the entertainment industry. Where's the congruence here?
Because we are not only in the entertainment industry, we're also in the hospitality sector, because it's the Entertainment and Hospitality Workers Alliance.
Yes. And in the absence of the tourists, would there be work in the hospital? Where tourists here doesn't mean somebody coming from abroad, but somebody even the domestic ones. Would they really be work if these people weren't allowed to, as you say correctly, move freely even into the red zones?
But they are currently not allowed to move from the red zones.
No, they're
outside.
not.
Like the Kenyan tourists are not allowed to do that.
No, you're not.
No.
But the international ones are. There was a memo that came out that said, with them showing proof of their status, they could.
That matter is still in the confusion. There's been announcement and counter announcement on whether once you land into JKIA, can you actually access local flights, or even tour vans allowed to leave the one zone? And I think the latest one was that they still are not allowed to.
They're still not allowed to.
Okay, but still, our work is not entirely dependent on tourists, because even as entertainers, we still used to play gigs with or without those tourists.
That's true.
So the waiters and waitresses still used to serve people with or without those tourists. Guys go to their watering holes, guys go to their hotels. We still used to play live music for those people. But right now, we cannot play even for the local Mwananchi, who we used to play for.
Very true.
And the most painful part is not that we were flouting those rules. We were masking up. We were doing all the things that we could do. And it hurts us. It hurts me as a spokesperson to think that when the curve flattened, it's the elites that went to hold this mega super spreader event. It's a political class that did that. And in those events...
Sir, if I may interrupt you, please, that is not entirely true. They contributed to it significantly, but contributors to the spread were not just political. Schools opening contributed significantly. Wananchi, you and I and everybody else not ensuring that we abide by the COVID rules contributed significantly.
Demonstrators such as those we saw yesterday, amongst yourselves, who are not keeping social distance or not wearing masks at all times, contributed.
Do you have evidence of them not wearing masks? Because I was the only person who was not in a mask, because I was leading the chant.
There you go.
There's evidence. That was just me. That was just one person. You can't say demonstrators. That was a demonstrator.
Demonstrators were not keeping social distance. One of them not wearing a mask. It's a conversation I'm making.
Okay, let's not split hairs about this. wearing a mask, not wearing a mask.
You should have had your
speaking.
mask, Makore.
What we're saying is
It did for the majority of
the situation
All
that we are
times.
dealing with here, sir, is a little complex, and that's the reality. And we understand it's complex. But look, I empathize fully because it is, as I said, frustrating, and I understand it's frustrating. But I'm trying to think of a contributory way in which an organization such as yours can help towards finding a solution to this quagmire that we find ourselves in for your members and as well as for the society, because the trade you ply is something that many people appreciate and it's something we need. And in the absence of it, our life doesn't get better, it gets worse. So how do we find a way forward? How do we look for ways and means? How do we think outside the so-called proverbial box so that we can actually find, moving forward, a way that we can actually survive with COVID?
And now, I do not know how bright this is, but I could ask the question, are there countries that are surviving in this COVID times in those industries? And the answer now is yes. So what are those countries doing? They're still doing the things that we were doing. What we do not understand is we would mask up. We had sanitizing stations, and guys were not allowed to come into the establishment, hotels, restaurants, bars, and all those. They were not allowed to come in there when they were not masked. And I'm just wondering, what's the closure? What aspect? What caused the government to close down those areas, our areas of work? What caused the government? What were we not doing? Were citizens not masking up? I
think one thing that we need to look at and try and separate the two, because we seem to look at the closure of the country per se as a punitive measure, and it was not. I think we need to divorce ourselves from that thinking. The closure of the country was specifically to be able to break the chain of the transmission of this virus. So it's not as though they said, all right, let's look at restaurants and close them down because they're not social distancing and they're not masking. No, it was to stop people from going into these areas so that we essentially see the breakage of this chain of the transmission of the virus. Now, it happens that there are people who operate within those jurisdictions for their job on a daily basis, such as yourselves, that would be affected by that directive. And those are things that happen in succession. Now, the question where we should be asking ourselves now is that of the very many Kenyans who've been affected in a negative way because of this, what can be done? Is there something that can be done on the creative side of some of these practitioners to say, can we still continue to work in our business? The majority of responsibility, in my opinion, lies in the hands of government to say, we have brought this about because we are trying to save lives. Now, at the same time, can you put some kind of protection in the hands of Kenyans? I think the overwhelming answer to that is yes, they can. What they will do and how quickly they will do it is a totally different discussion. Now, you asked the question about these other countries where they are doing things. How have they been able to survive? What have they been able to do? There are shows, for example, that are entertainment shows on the other side of the pond that never went off air. And they continue to ply their trade because they found other ways, and they found ways to be creative even when they've been asked to stay at home. There are shows that I'm sure you know, for example, that you used to watch before COVID came about and you've not stopped watching today, that you've not stopped participating in today because they found other ways to continue being entertaining. As difficult as it sounds and as burdensome as it sounds, there are ways. However, the majority of the responsibility, in my opinion, rests in the hands of government. That will you bring about a lockdown, for example? At the same time, will you help people to stay afloat so that they don't disappear? And when the lockdown then is and measures are eased, where will they be? So I think we all need to be in that space where we are understanding that it was not punitive. It is not punitive. It is not trying to punish Kenyans. What would show that you're trying to punish Kenyans is when you don't give them a safety net. You see? So I think it's important to look at it and say that it's not that they decided to come into restaurants and bars and shut things down. No. It was across the country to say that let's stop this chain.
And also there are those who argue that they could have at least said, folks, okay, in 1 week's time, in 2 weeks' time, we are going to shut down. And in that time, these are some of the things we'd like you to consider But even in preparation for this, but even before that, there are those who have argued, surely the government could have prevented this new wave by ensuring that people were compliant. All those arguments, valid as they may be, they are besides the point right now, because we have a lockdown and we have a situation that we must deal with. And at some level, people like yourselves who are leaders of certain parts of our economy have to get together with your people and say, folks, here's where we are. We've understood what the government has done. In addition to what we've already done, how else do we ensure that we stay relevant? And relevance here means stay alive. How do we ensure?
That's a valid concern, but I feel what you said, what you have said is what exactly what I was saying, in the sense that by you asking me what I should do for my people, or what we are doing, it's part of the problem where we excuse government for too much. It's not my responsibility to ensure that my members have tax exemptions. That's the responsibility of the government. And what we were doing on the street yesterday is just demonstrating for government accountability, because a lot of us as citizens take up work that is supposed to be for the government, work that the government is supposed to be doing. I'm not supposed to be coming up with recommendations of how government is supposed to ease the burden for creatives. Government should do that because we pay taxes as well. I mean, the other day, the government spokesperson said the government doesn't engage in any business, so we are supposed to pay taxes. They do all those tax declarations, and we look at those sectors, and they lock down the country. No tax exemptions, no breaks, no stimulus package for certain sectors of industry, but they've locked the country down. That's not my responsibility. If I agitate for that, that means all I'm asking is, can government do its work? Because at the point where we are at now, we are helpless. We can't say that we're not doing those shows. I've put out almost close to 100 hours of music right now. Those hours of music do not feed me right now. Because even if you look at the revenue stream from YouTube, not all of us are as famous. I'm pretty sure some of you, this is the first time you're seeing me. And no, it's not that we have that many views, and it's the same situation for the Kenyans. There are very, very few artists who make a living out of YouTube, and it's a pittance what we earn from the revenue per view. So if we're talking live shows, live streams, our creatives are already doing that. We're doing socially distanced shows. I do a live show in my house every other day. That's not for money. That's for the Kenyans. So what we're asking, it's not like we are sitting here and just going to the street and not doing anything. The waitresses are doing some bake-offs. The waiters are also doing some things. The baristas are doing those socially distanced mix, the coffee, I don't know the English word you lose.
The thing they do.
But the thing they do, the barista ring.
That one.
The mixing of cocktails.
That one. That thingamajig, yes.
Yes. So it's not like we are not doing anything. The photographers are doing a great thing. There was a flea market at an Insta meet that was at the Alchemist, and it was a thing just for the creatives. So what is really frustrating is we are doing our best to do our part as creatives, but what is government doing? And that's why I didn't want to turn it into a Serikali's idea. When we were talking, everybody had connections to politicians and all that.
Yep.
And I was like, we will not align. This is not a political agenda. This is a matter of survival between our children, our spouses. When they lock the country down, it's our brothers who've been locked down in Mombasa who can't go back to Kisumu.
So it's not Serikali's idea, it's Serikali fanya kazi.
This is Serikali, do your part, because we are doing ours. We are socially distanced. We have done our part. We are making the music. I did a song called Beat the Virus. I did not even see that stimulus thing that they were talking about. The artists didn't receive that. And 100 million for the artists. There are people who play the traditional instruments who people never heard of.
Yep.
Well, did they earn that money? So we're like, the government is not doing its work. We're not asking for charity. We're just asking for basic dignity. We are doing our part. We are socially distancing. You've never gone to a hotel and be served by a waiter or a waitress who is not in a mask or a face shield. You've never gone to a hotel and not been sanitized. You've never seen a DJ playing in that hotel and bring guys without masks. If that's while we're doing our part as citizens, what is the government doing? Why should we also now go and do another part for the government? Why would you expect me to create a job for a fellow creative? Well, that's clearly the mandate for the government. That's what we are doing. We're not asking for charity, for help. We are just asking for basic dignity. The government should respect its electorate. the people who elected it? Why are they doing all this favors for the international tourists or diplomats and all that? Why can't they just extend the same courtesy to us? Why did you just tell us stuff like until further notice? What is further notice? I do not understand that.
Clearly, this anger of yours was not academic. It's real, huh?
It's life.
No, yes.
And when I hear you speak,
anger. Teach me how because I want to do this better. I'd like you what version of anger would help this
situation? Oh no, the anger isn't a bad thing, sir. Oh no, not at all, not at all, not at all. It's how you channel it. It's not a bad thing. Something that gets you worked up and gets you, because in your case it's clearly motivating you. So in essence, it's a good thing. I'm only concerned if it clouds your mind, because you must stay clear and you must think clearly. COVID isn't going to end tomorrow. Neither are we going to find a one-size-fits-all solution. It's a work in progress. And even as we talk about the things that are being done and must be done, one must continually think of ways and means of improving on what it is that you're doing. And it doesn't stop. Because believe me, COVID, like HIV, is with us. And it's going to be with us for a long time to come. Okay?
Yes.
So, given this reality, what then do we do? That really is the question that we're all asking ourselves.
Why are you expecting that of me? Because as an artist, I used to do live gigs. I've just told you, now we do our live shows at home. You've seen artists do living room shows. You've seen us put a tip jar down there for M-Pesa. If you feel like donating, we've enrolled for Twitch. That's still not enough. The cost of housing in Nairobi alone is crazy. The cost of food is crazy. Transportation is crazy. So what more am I expected to do? As a creative, I've done almost everything I would do. And also, you need to remember these things cost money. I might be able to afford to do a live show in my home, but there's a band member who I run a whole big band. That's like a 16-piece thing. It's the first of its kind in Kenya. What am I supposed to do with my musicians? If I look at it as an employer, what is the government doing for me? Because if you bring that back to me, I feel very respectfully so that you're being a part of the problem.
Let me ask, what would you like the government to do for you?
I've already said that. We want the tax breaks. We want them to give us clear directives of how they're going to curb this situation, to stop this further notice business. Give us a clear role of how they're going to do the mass testing, the mass vaccination.
All right.
Tell us what do they intend to do with the curfew. Because the curfew thing seems more of a security measure than a health measure, because it was determined by the National Security Council. Who in the health sector sits in that council? I mean, what I want the government to do is not for me, it's for all of us, because you also are in this sector. There are fellow podcasters who don't make money from podcasts, and you guys know that because you work in media. I mean, I'm asking, what we are doing is not a selfish thing. It's not us chasing clout. It's just saying, can government do its thing? You've seen them do. You've seen how willing they are to go to great lengths to give us a new constitution. And I'm a firm believer that a constitution doesn't need good men to implement it.
I need to chime in that the government didn't give us this constitution.
Now this one, the BBI one.
Oh, you're talking about the BBI one?
The BBI one. The great length that I've,
if you talk about BBI, then please continue. You should have prefaced it and been specific and said BBI.
When I hear you, Makaure, I can...
And we're the ones who write that reggae. We're the ones who play reggae in Nairobi. It's been stopped. They think it hasn't, but we're the ones who write those songs. We're the ones who feed them, we host them, we cook for them. And what I wanted to say is they can't do that for a good constitution doesn't need good men to implement it. That's what I need. Like, if a constitution is good, even if it was the worst man there, the measures for punitive measures are there, corrective measures, legislative measures don't need a good man. A good constitution is self-implementary. Why can't they find ways to go to get a million signatures and not vaccinate 1 million Kenyans? Where are the priorities of the government? If you ask me what I want the government to do and what I want to do for my creatives, I very respectfully so that you're being a part of the problem. You're making it harder for me to agitate for the people who need this agitation. And I'm not being angry just for nothing.
We hear you, Kasmol. Kasmol Makaure, spokesperson for the Entertainment and Hospitality Workers Alliance, somebody who, earns his living in this industry, is saying, look, government, you've told me to do this, I've done it. So what are you doing? And I, by the way, getting to a point where I hear you, because I think these are the same things that we keep asking here. So, okay, you've told people to do this, and na wewe kazi yako ni nini? Let's take a break. When we come out of this break, we'll also open up the phone lines and hear from other Kenyans in other sectors who maybe can call in, and maybe they can also give you that the idea of what you can do to help the government that is not able to help you. Okay?
We will not help the government.
No. Okay. You help yourself.
Yes.
Parents, did you know that you can make your children's learning during this COVID period fun and rewarding? Many parents are longing to have their children excel in education and innovation to the global arena. Here is the opportunity. Join Generation Next Challenge. That's a national online competition for all Kenyan pupils and students where they use the power of math to play fun activities and design their own creations. During this program, students will solve weekly challenges using math, computational skills, imagination, critical thinking, helping them recover the learning loss caused by the COVID pandemic. All this is done online, so the classes and assessments are virtual, with the potential to earn badges and certificates that eventually might help them get scholarships for global challenges and boot camps. Help your child join the global challenge of young innovators as they display their robotic skills for the next world problem solution. To join now, go to generationnextchallenge.com. That's generationnextchallenge.com. 28 minutes to 10 o'clock, Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's take a look at the weather and traffic. And then you can call in 0719-012-600. You hear Mr. Makaure, the pianist, and what he is saying. What is it that the government can do or should do to address the plight of very many people who've been affected by this lockdown? Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
Sarit, your city, is inviting you for an Easter celebration like no other. Come over with your family and loved ones from the 2nd to the 5th of April and enjoy a special Easter-themed shopping experience with special mall deco, the Easter Village, Sana art display for the lovers of art. Enjoy unlimited live performances. Don't forget to check out the Easter Fair, where you can get great deals and offers. All this and more only at Sarit, your city. All COVID-19 protocols set by the Ministry of Health shall be observed.
"24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
We've been all through it, you know. We go to school, study hard, get the much-deserved grades and celebrate our graduation. Then reality hits us. We get to the job market and we simply don't know where to start off. Thankfully, by visiting jobs.standardmedia.co.ke, your next career breakthrough could be a click away. Get the best in career advice, employment opportunities, internships, part-time jobs, CV writing and interview coaching. Give your career the much-needed lift on jobs.standardmedia.co.ke.
Have you seen them? Am I lying?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you. Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Everyone in Wasingishu was asking me what channel is Spice FM.
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have
What
you.
a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you, and it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners.
In some parts of the city at 20, highs of 26 and lows of 17 today in Nairobi. Rain showers continue in Nyeri at 19, highs of 24 and lows of 15. 15 will also be the low in Nakuru, where it's partly sunny at 20, highs of 27. 25 the high in Eldoret. It's mostly cloudy at 18, and we're looking at mostly sunny conditions now in Kisumu at 25, highs of 28. Highs of 29 in Kakamega. It's sunny at 21. Rain showers continue in Mombasa, now at 31. It'll go to highs of 32. Rain showers also in Malindi at 29, going to highs of 32. 26 the high in Kampala, where it's mostly sunny at 23. Light rain continues in Dar es Salaam at 27, highs of 30 and lows of 25. The low of 12 will be recorded in Johannesburg. It's currently 19 degrees. It'll go to highs of 24. 33 the high in Lagos. Rain still coming down at 26. Mostly cloudy conditions in Kinshasa at 24. We'll see highs of 31. We'll see highs of 19 in Beijing today. It's sunny through and through. 25 will be the high in Paris. Sunny conditions at 8. It's a hazy London morning. At 8, we'll see highs of 15 and lows of 5. And 11 degrees and cloudy into Thursday in New York. We'll see highs of 12 and lows of -1. Okay, it's looking much better, guys. Still Mombasa Road in and outbound. We're going to have this for a couple of hours. But other parts of the city looking pretty good. Out of traffic hour, coming off Thika Road, in and outbound, looking good. Langata Road, looking a little bit better now. Ngong Road also is looking good, as is Jogo Road. Moving traffic, not a standstill, which is a good thing. Keep in touch through the day should you need to. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Spice up your life.
Twenty-three minutes to 10 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. We're having a conversation with the spokesperson of the Entertainment and Hospitality Workers Alliance, Kasmuel Makaure. Kasmuel, you are a pianist, aren't you?
I am.
That's why you have a very lovely piano right behind you. And so, what I understand the piano. The shoes?
Mm-hmm. The shoes? That's a long story.
Okay.
That's a spicy one, but not for today.
Okay, it's all right. It's all right. Let's open up the phone line 0719-012-600. People in the entertainment and hospitality sector are among those that have been affected by a lockdown. Now, if we look at what lockdowns are actually, how they are taking place in other parts of the world, for example, now Paris has gone into a third and more stringent lockdown, and this one is saying, stay indoors as much as possible. We have seen the same. UK is just starting to emerge out of one, and there's a plan on how we get out. Then there was a plan of how we got in. Even in those countries, Kasmuel, people in your industry have also been affected. What is it that has been done by those governments to help them?
I'd really love to address that, but I don't really care. This is where I live, this is where I'm at, and this is where I've been locked down. The problem I have is with my government. What is my government doing for me? And I'm not trying to look for solutions I'm not trying to help government. Our president has a greater chance to know what Boris is doing, what Macron is doing in curbing the infections. So what I will dissociate myself from is trying to help government be government, because I cannot.
It's actually not really helping government. Is in crystallizing you see the things that you've come up with. This is our memorandum to government. This is what we'd like to see happen.
Yes.
You can crystallize that using other examples. This, for example, is what is happening to our comrades in this part of the world. In South Africa, where bars have been shut down and there's no sale of alcohol. What is it that's happening to the people who've been serving in the pubs? So if you can see that this is what's happening, and then you can say, all right, so we can use some of these examples to crystallize our own memorandum to our government, and this is what we want to see.
Eric, remember in South Africa, even the sale of alcohol at some point had actually been halted completely. Sale.
It's back.
Yes.
And I'm not necessarily...
That thing is back.
So I'm not necessarily agitating for the sale of alcohol, the sale of anything. What we're agitating for is, can government do their part of the bargain? Because we have done ours. And now you see, in crystallizing, it means you're overworking the citizen. Exactly what we are protesting against. Where I have done this, I have socially distanced. I have told my band to stay at home. We're doing live shows on Instagram. We're doing all that. What is government doing? Because government hasn't come ahead and said, because what they did last year, they just said we're going to give a stimulus package of 100 million to the creatives. I have already said that money did not quite get to the creatives' pockets. So what more is government doing? Because after that, what we decided to do was to do live shows and put our till numbers down there and our phone numbers and tell people, this is our tip jar, you could do that. I am doing, what is government doing? Because I'm not come here to say, if this is not a situation of government is doing something badly. This is a situation of government is not doing.
Wow.
Okay. And that's what makes that's what we are concerned about. Even before we go to the other countries, what is government currently doing? Because if government can collect 5 million signatures in a week, I believe government can do something about the vaccination, the mass vaccination of people.
Okay.
If we think I totally believe that government has to do something first.
I hear you. Let's go to the phone lines and hear what others are also saying about this. Morris in Kisumu, good morning.
Morning, Latif. How are you?
Very well.
Hi, Fiti and Ndu.
We are very well, thank you, sir. And how are you?
I'm okay by the lake.
Good.
Trolling.
Good.
Okay. So I really emphasize with Casper because what he's saying is real. And yesterday was this gentleman from the Hoteliers Association who also had some very valid points.
Yep.
I mean, immunize individuals, test individuals, make sure they're negative, let them contribute to the economy.
Yep.
Take care of the artists. Artists are doing a lot of live show in their living rooms. And it is a bit to social distance and, stamp down the spread of COVID. Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
So I really don't understand why when the finger is pointed at politicians, they complain. Why don't they do virtual rallies? You have to travel to somebody's backyard and collect a whole crowd there, spread the virus, and then run back to Nairobi and say, nilipatikana na COVID, lakini now I'm doing fine. It's wrong. Yes, lead by example. We can see you on TV. Don't come to my village to create chaos.
Kauko. Thank you, Maurice.
Kauko.
Thank you, Maurice. Let's hear from Patrick in Nairobi. Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, this is a nice conversation. I'd just like to chip in a few things. The effect of COVID is not only economical but also mental.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that is not being spoken about. You want me to sit in my house and do all this social distancing, but I'm cheesy as I'm doing this. I'm not having food.
Yeah.
So what is the probability of me just following all those directives? I think it's now getting to that. And then the second thing also is that the African CDC gave good directives on how to handle this situation. That was last year. And it's also, I don't know who is the task force of this entire thing, but what happened the other Friday when the announcement was made, for me, I think that was more like an emergency brake on a car that's moving. Now, nobody wants to experience such. Which tuk-tuk or a Mercedes, nobody likes such kind of brakes. And I think that is one of the reasons why people are very agitated, because CDC stipulated that things have to be done gradually and after a good, you've done your test and you have followed the data. You see, like, for example, if I can just give an example, Nairobi currently has like 40 million people, and the available vaccines are, 4 million people?
4 million.
4 million.
Not 40 million
people. Yeah, sorry.
Nairobi
and then the vaccines the vaccines are 2M. So imagine by now half people should have been vaccinated if that was the plan. But we are not seeing anything like this. And just to also add in, if BBI got those 5 million signatures in 1 week, so that is a clear statement. If this government wanted half of Nairobians to be vaccinated, in 2 or 3 days, tungekuwa tushavaccinatiwa.
Okay. Thank you, Patrick.
That's it.
Thank you. Peter in Homa Bay, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, I'm getting you.
Yes, Peter. So what's your contribution to this conversation?
Okay. Good morning. My name is Peter Orinde. And first, let me say hi to Caswell, a very young youth who is more energetic and more focused into bringing solution to the country. Yes. So to just put my small contribution, I want to say, to solve this, first, let us seal the loop of corruption, because it's corruption that leaks away everything. Just imagine up to this level, we've tested roughly less than 200,000 To me, since COVID began, we've not even tested teachers in the country. Just leave alone any other body, any other person. We've not tested just teachers.
Yeah.
So we tend to imagine the 48 million, how long are you going to take to vaccinate, to test and vaccinate the 48 million? I think there's somewhere we're going wrong. If our people will just feel the loop of corruption, our resources going to the few hands, then I think we'll be having a solution. Another one on economic stimulation. I think it's a high time the president devolved even more resources to reach the wananchi. The president was talking about the kazi mtaani, yet in the real sense, kazi mtaani is not at the ground. So maybe it reached a level and these resources that were meant for kazi mtaani went to somebody else's hand. That is not helping the mwananchi wa kawaida. So let us fill the loop of corruption and get the solution in its entirety.
Asante. Thank you very much, Peter. Let's hear from Gabriel, who's in Nairobi. Good morning.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Hey, very well.
Fine, thanks.
Yeah, I really feel Samuel on this issue, and especially the pain of us youth, because people do require solutions from us, but they're too lazy, yet they have the resources to form these task forces who do nothing. And there's also a category of people who are forgotten. I've been traveling to Meru for the last few months, and when you close down a university, like Chuka University, the whole town around Chuka is gone. I mean, there's no business happening. And the day I passed there when it was open, there's a lot of economic activity. So when you tell students to close universities, you're killing towns, not just small livelihood. And all this at the back when a CS tells us to brace for higher prices in fuel. I mean, it's just an insult. Every day we are just being insulted, and I really feel his pain. I'm also very angry, and I think something needs to be done very soon. We're at the boiling point. We can't hold back for too long.
What is this something, though, Gabriel? For example, if you take the example that you've given of Chuka, all right?
Yes.
So it's a university. Thousands of people close together in a learning institution. You want to stop the spread of COVID, so you've got to tell the people, all right, let's go home. So what can you do to support that economy that was running around university?
Eric, you cannot close down a university. You find solutions around it. For example, learning can be done in other places. For example, the University of Nairobi used to open up its dining halls for learning. Because the whole town is dependent on this institution. So find other solutions. Lockdown is just the easy way out. It's a low-hanging fruit that they seem to always go to. But there are ways, there are means of doing these things.
Brother, as painful as it looks, and as angry as folks are right now, let's just look at the science of this thing. Because in as much as it's easy to say that the lockdown is a low-hanging fruit that you can just pick, the lockdown is a proven way to actually stop the transmission. And we must go back to the genesis of this thing every time. That the only way to stop the virus from infecting people is to stop movement.
Of people.
Of people. This virus cannot survive on its own. It must have a host. And the only way to move it is to move people. And I think we need to, regardless of the emotion that is attached to this, the reality of people's lives basically coming to a halt because of this, that notwithstanding, we must look at the reality of this thing. Now, when we talk about solutions, I can hear what you're saying, that there are things that can be done. But then even as we are making these suggestions to government who have the power and the machinery to do it, we must also be very clear. We are saying that let's have a different solution. But what is that? When the rubber meets the road and we're asked, okay, let's just assume for a minute that government says, all right, here we are sitting down and we are saying we're going to lock it down, but then we need help in terms of solutions that we're going to give. Ideas. What are we going to say?
Why would governments need help from us?
No. Let's say, okay, let's look at some of the things that government can do. Let's look at some of the things that governments can do. One of the things that Casmo has talked about is tax breaks, right? Right now, when you're not performing in a bar or restaurant, the tax break is not going to help you do your job today because you still will not go anywhere if it's a lockdown.
That's why you go wrong. That's why you go wrong because the tax does not only affect me from working there. That's the same logic for people who think fuel prices only affect the people who have cars.
No. Hear what I said. Hear what I said very clearly. Where the pinch is now, Kasmuel, is that you cannot perform. If you can't perform, you cannot earn.
So if
Isn't it?
If you got
Isn't it?
even if you
So
get
even if you get a tax break, even if you get a reprieve with
Look at it.
taxes.
No, that's a very simplistic way to look at it.
No,
Because
I'm
if
asking. I
cannot
want you to
perform-
answer my question.
Okay,
Let's just be objective here.
Okay,
In as much
all
as we want to inject, let's just be extremely objective.
Okay.
The pinch for a lot of people is, and they're saying, open the country, and I hear it. Open the country so that we can do what? So that we can work in order for us to earn. Now, one of the solutions that you've mentioned about 3 times now is give us tax breaks, right?
Yes.
You get a tax break, you get reprieve from certain taxes, so you don't have to pay. How right now is that going to help you earn?
Great. So, for example, the last time I played a gig, this is the amount of money I earned. I have 100,000, right?
Right.
And 100,000 when life was just kawaida was okay with the VAT being at 16 and all that. So when I talk about tax, don't just think about it from tax that is payee. There's VAT. There's all sorts of taxes, the levies that are being charged. Because we cannot just look at taxes in terms of salaries. I feel like that's a very privileged way to look at it. If they give us tax breaks, then that means commodities are cheaper.
Okay, so what does it mean for you right now to get a tax break? Right now, how does that translate to your existence today?
Can they reduce the VAT? Can they reduce the VAT so that my savings can stay a little longer?
Okay.
That's also a tax break. Don't you think?
It is.
It is.
It is.
Yeah, because those are the kinds of things we're asking for. Because the fuel prices keep going higher and all that, and that means the factors of production are also going higher. So the prices are also going to spike. But we still have that kind of money that we had. So they are doing stuff for themselves, and we are not. Like the money is still there.
Okay.
The money is not circulating. We're not getting any of that.
Let me go
We're
back
not
to the phone
making it.
lines.
Okay.
Musa is in Nakuru and he wants to contribute. Good morning, Musa.
Good morning to you.
Yes.
Good morning, Du.
Good
City
morning,
Latif.
Musa.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yep. Now, I'm talking as an hotelier. I'm a restaurant owner.
Yes.
And I employ about 36 employees.
Mm-hmm.
When the lockdown came, we only remained with 10. Morning to you. That's the same thing with the last year. And I was listening to Du about the issues of lockdown. And I would also understand what customer is saying about the problems people are undergoing. We really have to be in touch what's going on the ground. To me, the way I've seen it is, one, the government does a knee-jerk response to these things.
Yeah.
Looking at how we've operated, most hotels do comply. And what we can say is it's upon, if this thing, the counties themselves should be able, with the health department, to police hotels and the establishment so that things are done right. What I can tell you is since last year, we have really tried on our part to make sure that we are sanitizing, distancing, 2 people per table and stuff like that. But I'll tell you, if there was a visit for the last 1 year from authorities, not more than even 3 times.
They didn't visit?
Hardly.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So secondly, there is the issue of the rallies. And I would want Ndu and Latif City to be very fair. Don't really support so much about the lockdown, because we have to look at this thing objectively. It's really hurting people. I'll give an example. When the lockdown came, and the other about most employees want to go up country, for instance, because there's no income. They can't even leave the town. They can't leave the town. They can't leave Nairobi. They can't leave Nakuru. They can't leave Kisumu. So you can imagine these are young people who are actually stuck. So to me, it boils down to the issue of management. Let's look at the schools, how they behaved. I know of schools, especially in Nakuru, that there were almost 0 cases. And these are big schools. while some had a lot of problems with the infections within the students, they even created a sick base for them. So basically, city, I would say this is this is purely management. Let us not compare ourselves with the other countries. I'll give an example of, say, Perth. These are big economies. We can't compare ourselves with them. So the way we should be leading, we should be dealing with the lockdown issues and stuff like that. The approach should be totally different, because we don't have money. People are poor. People have nothing to eat. So we shouldn't just say that locking up people and making the curfews go to, I don't know, from 8 o'clock, while people are crammed in cars trying to get home. There are many problems. I think the thing has been is being handled in a very different way, and is not fair. Let me add something. When there was a case at Perth, one person, maybe 2 months ago, in the city, they closed it down for 1 week. And then the next week, Monday, people at work. And they have not had a case. That's about 2 months now. So these are different economies. We cannot use such models here. Here, iko shida mingi sana.
Thank you, Musa. Thank you very much. We hear you. As we conclude the conversation with Kasmol. So, Kasmol, after yesterday, what's your next course of action?
We will continue to agitate for our rights. We'll do write-ups, we'll do media tours, and we will do demonstrations. We will demonstrate again if need be. We're just waiting to hear what government has to say today at 2, because yesterday's demonstration actually yielded results. Despite a lot of people thinking that was just anger, the CAS told us that they're going to meet today at 2 p.m. To review the measures. We will continue to employ all tactics to ensure government does its job. We cannot elect them, pay them, and then also contribute. Why do they form those committees?
And do the job.
And they tell us that we should be excited. Yeah, we will not allow that. We will not sympathize with government. We will not become apologists for it, because we excuse them for so much. So much. Our members are dying. Our members are committing suicide. Our women are in trouble. But we are the ones who are setting up those funds. Justice for who? Justice for this and that. As if we do not have a justice system. As if we do not pay taxes. So we will ensure, we will agitate.
Thank you very much.
Organize, mobilize, and do all that.
Listen to today's proverb from City Muga as we conclude the show.
The fate that befalls the lowly will befall the leader.
Put it in context.
For me?
Yep. For you.
Do I get to win that 10,000 bob?
Yeah. You get to try to win the 10,000 bob.
Yes.
I would think of it just the way we are right now, and I would extrapolate it and say, one day the poor will have nothing to eat but the rich, in the sense that we think that these are problems that are just that way below us, that since we are in a certain privileged position and we can afford to access certain things, so we can turn a blind eye to the things that we need to fix. So as much as we think that we are insulated from certain things, eventually, if we do not deal with problems at their root causes, they'll bring all of us down.
Very true. You've put it very well. You've brought out the interdependency of all human beings with each other. COVID, unfortunately, is the unifying factor here, and it is treating everybody the same the world over. It's a commonality.
Yeah.
And what you've done is opened up a new avenue for debate, and we thank you for your contribution, and we thank you for the points you've put across. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kasmol. Have a lovely day.
Kasmol.
You too, guys.
Cheers.
Asante sana. It's 10 o'clock. Keep it right here for more conversations of this nature tomorrow. From now until 11 o'clock, you have uninterrupted music, and then Sugar and Spice come into the show. Sugar